She was never meant to be the bride. But the moment that veil lifted, she became the most dangerous woman in the room. Tonight, you'll witness how a girl erased by her own family walked into a trap meant to destroy her, and instead claimed an empire. This is the story of Lena Voss, the replacement bride who refused to stay replaced. Stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far Lena's story travels. Now, let's begin. The bruise on Lena's shoulder was 3 days old, shaped like fingers. She'd gotten it from carrying her stepsister's luggage down 2 flights of stairs while Victoria screamed about scuffed heels. The maids had watched from doorways, their eyes full of pity they'd never voice. Pity was cheap. It didn't pay wages or risk employment. Lena had learned not to expect it. She stood now in the servants' corridor of the Voss estate, though it hadn't truly been the Voss estate in years. Her father's name still hung on the deed, but his ghost had less presence than the furniture. He'd died when she was 12, and within 6 months, her stepmother Patricia had redecorated the entire house. Within a year, Lena's bedroom had become Victoria's walk-in closet. Within 2 years, Lena had become invisible. "Lena!" Patricia's voice cut through the evening air like a blade through silk. Sharp, precise, designed to sever. "Where's the seamstress? Victoria's dress needs final adjustments." Lena pressed her palm against the cool wall and closed her eyes. "Just breathe, count to 5, don't cry where they can see. 1, 2, 3. "I'm coming," she called back. 4, 5. She'd stopped reaching 5 years ago. Somewhere around year 3 of this life, she'd learned that 5 was a luxury. Most days, she barely made it to 3. The seamstress had left 20 minutes ago, her payment short by half because Patricia had found an invisible flaw in the stitching. The woman had departed tight-lipped and furious, unlikely to return. It was the 4th seamstress in 2 months. Victoria's wedding dress had become a graveyard of broken professional relationships. The wedding, tomorrow night. Victoria Voss would marry Adrian Cade, and the entire city would witness the union of old money and new power. The society papers had been salivating over it for weeks. "A love story written in starlight," one headline had proclaimed. Lena had read it while scrubbing the kitchen floor at 2 in the morning, her knees aching against the tile. There was no love story. There was a contract, negotiated over brandy and lawyers. Victoria got a powerful husband and a crime empire's protection. Adrian Cade got legitimacy, social access, and a beautiful wife to hang on his arm at galas. Everyone won, except maybe Adrian Cade, Lena thought sometimes, in the dark hours before dawn when honesty felt safer. Victoria was beautiful, yes, golden-haired and sharp-featured, with her mother's calculating eyes. But she was also cruel in the particular way of people who'd never been denied anything. She collected grudges like jewelry and wore her privilege like armor. Lena had once made the mistake of pointing out that Victoria's French pronunciation was incorrect. She'd spent the next week locked in the basement. She was 15 then. "Lena!" Patricia again, closer now. Lena could hear the click of her heels on marble, designer heels, purchased with Lena's father's money from the company Lena's grandfather had built. "Did you go deaf, girl?" Lena straightened her spine and stepped into the main hallway. Patricia stood at the top of the stairs, backlit by the chandelier that had hung in this house for 3 generations. She looked like an oil painting of aristocratic displeasure. "The seamstress left," Lena said quietly. "You didn't pay her enough." "I paid her what the work was worth." Patricia descended 3 steps, her expression cooling. "Where is Victoria?" "I don't know." "Find her. The photographer arrives in an hour for pre-wedding portraits, and she needs to practice her smile. The candid one, not the real one. The real one makes her look predatory." Lena wanted to say that Victoria was predatory, that no amount of practice smiling would hide the truth. Instead, she nodded. "I'll check her room. And fix your hair before you're seen in any photographs. You look like you've been cleaning gutters." She had been cleaning gutters, yesterday, in the rain, because Victoria had claimed the downspout outside her window was making noise, and Patricia had decided it was Lena's responsibility to solve it, at midnight, in a thunderstorm. Lena climbed the stairs, each step a negotiation with exhaustion. Her room, the small storage space on the third floor that she'd occupied for the past 8 years, felt impossibly far away. But Victoria's suite was closer. Start there. The door was ajar. That was the first warning. Victoria never left doors open. She valued her privacy the way dragons valued gold, with teeth and fire for anyone who dared intrude. Lena had learned that lesson early, along with so many others. She pushed the door wider. Victoria? The room was empty, not just empty, ransacked. Drawers hung open like broken jaws. The closet, Lena's former bedroom, had been gutted, expensive dresses thrown across the floor in a trail leading to the window. The window itself stood open, curtains billowing in the evening breeze. And on the bed, positioned carefully on top of the wedding dress that had cost more than most people's cars, lay a single piece of paper. Lena's hands shook as she picked it up. I'm not doing this. I'm not marrying a criminal to save your social standing. Find another sacrifice. I'm going to Paris. The handwriting was Victoria's, sharp, angular, expensive private school cursive. The message was unmistakably hers, too, selfish, destructive, perfectly timed for maximum damage. Lena stood there, holding the note, and felt the world narrow to a pinpoint. No, 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 no. She knew what came next. She could see it unfolding with the clarity of a car crash in slow motion. Patricia would panic. The wedding was tomorrow. The contracts were signed. Adrian Cade didn't strike Lena as the type of man who accepted contract breaches with understanding and grace. They would need a replacement. They would need a bride. And there was only one other young woman in this house. No, Lena whispered to the empty room. Please, no. But the universe had never listened to her before. Why would it start now? Patricia's scream could probably be heard in the next county. Lena had walked downstairs mechanically, note in hand, her mind spinning through impossible escape scenarios. She could run. She could leave right now, walk out the front door, and never come back. She had $43 in her room, money she'd saved from the allowance Patricia occasionally threw at her like scraps to a dog. It wouldn't get her far, but it would get her away. But where would she go? She had no friends. Patricia had made sure of that, isolating her from her father's family, from her school friends, from anyone who might have helped. She had no job skills beyond cleaning and organizing and making herself small. She had no connections, no references, nothing. She had nothing. And now, standing in the sitting room while Patricia paced like a caged animal, and 3 expensive lawyers conferred in urgent whispers by the fireplace, Lena felt the trap closing around her with the finality of a coffin lid. This is a disaster, Patricia hissed. She'd poured herself 2 fingers of whiskey, then 3 more. Her carefully maintained composure had cracked, revealing the calculating predator beneath. Do you understand what this means? Do you have any concept of what Adrian Cade will do when he learns we've breached the contract? We could explain, one of the lawyers began. Explain what? That my daughter got cold feet and decided to flee the country 12 hours before her wedding? That the Voss family reneges on deals when they become inconvenient? Patricia's laugh was acid. He'll destroy us. He'll take the business, the house, everything, and that's if we're lucky. If we're unlucky, we'll simply disappear. That's what happens to people who embarrass Adrian Cade. Lena had heard the stories. Everyone had. Adrian Cade had built his empire from nothing, crawling out of the city's darkest corners to establish a network that touched everything from real estate to shipping to things people only whispered about. He was 32 and controlled half the city's underground economy. The other half paid him tribute. People who crossed him didn't get second chances. They got obituaries. There must be a solution, the second lawyer said. He was younger, sweating through his expensive suit. A postponement? A renegotiation? There's no time. Patricia stopped pacing, her eyes fixing on something across the room. On someone. Unless... Lena felt her blood turn to ice. No, she said. The word came out smaller than she'd intended. Patricia, please. You're approximately the same height. Patricia moved closer, circling her like a buyer inspecting livestock. Similar build, with the right dress, the right styling, behind a veil. I'm not Victoria. People will know. Most people have never seen Victoria up close. She's been carefully photographed from her best angles for years. Patricia's smile was knife-thin. You've been kept conveniently invisible. He'll know, Lena said desperately. Adrian Cade will know. By the time he discovers the substitution, the wedding will be complete, the contracts executed, and you... Patricia's hand shot out, gripping Lena's chin, forcing eye contact. You will be the perfect, obedient wife. You've had 8 years of practice being obedient. The room spun. Lena tried to pull away, but Patricia's grip tightened. This is insane, Lena managed. I can't. I won't. You will. Patricia released her, smoothing her dress as if they'd been discussing wallpaper. Or I'll make sure you lose even the nothing you currently have. I'll have you arrested for theft, for assault. I'll fabricate whatever I need to fabricate, and you'll spend the rest of your youth in prison. She paused. Actually, given Adrian Cade's connections, you probably wouldn't make it to trial. Prisoners have such unfortunate accidents. It wasn't a bluff. Lena could see the truth in Patricia's eyes, the absolute willingness to destroy her if it meant saving herself. The alternative, Patricia continued, her voice softening into something almost reasonable, is that you do this one thing. You stand in for Victoria for a few hours, long enough for the ceremony, the photographs, the initial reception. Once the contracts are signed and the marriage is legal, we'll explain the situation to Mr. Cade privately. We'll offer compensation, a generous settlement for the inconvenience. And if he doesn't accept compensation? Patricia's smile didn't reach her eyes. Then you'll have to be a very convincing wife. The lawyers exchanged glances but said nothing. They were being paid to facilitate, not to object. Lena looked around the room, at the portraits of her father on the walls, at the furniture he'd chosen, at the home that had once been filled with his laughter. He'd been a good man, if naive. He'd married Patricia thinking she'd be a mother to his daughter. He'd been wrong about so many things. I need time to think, Lena said. You have 10 minutes. Patricia checked her watch. Then we start preparations. The wedding is tomorrow at 8. That gives us just under 24 hours to transform you into a bride. Lena walked out of the room on legs that barely held her. She made it to the hallway bathroom before the panic attack hit, her breath coming in short gasps, her vision tunneling. She gripped the sink, staring at her reflection. Brown eyes, unremarkable. Dark hair, unstyled. A face people looked through, not at. She'd cultivated invisibility so thoroughly that she'd almost disappeared. And now they wanted her to be seen, to stand in front of the entire city's elite, to marry a man who killed people for breaking contracts. She had 10 minutes to decide. She had 10 minutes to choose between impossible options. In the end, there was no choice at all. They worked through the night. A new team of stylists arrived within hours, people who asked no questions and accepted cash payments. Patricia had made calls, pulled strings, utilized every connection she had. The machine of deception was already in motion. Lena sat in Victoria's room, her old room, while strangers transformed her. Head up, the hairstylist commanded, her hands working through Lena's hair with efficient brutality. They bleached it first, stripping away the dark brown until Lena barely recognized herself. Then came the toner, turning her hair a shade of honey blonde close enough to Victoria's champagne gold. It burned. The chemicals stung her scalp, bringing tears to her eyes that the makeup artist immediately wiped away. No crying, the makeup artist said. Not unkindly, but firmly. It ruins the canvas. The canvas. That's what she was now. A surface to be painted. They plucked her eyebrows, reshaped them into Victoria's dramatic arch. Contact lenses changed her brown eyes to Victoria's pale hazel. Contouring made her cheekbones sharper, her nose narrower, her face into something that might pass for her stepsisters in dim lighting and behind a veil. The dress came last. It was beautiful. Lena could acknowledge that even through the numbness. Ivory silk and French lace, with a bodice that had been fitted to Victoria's measurements. It was slightly too loose on Lena, who'd lost weight over the years of irregular meals and constant work. The seamstress, a different one, who'd arrived at midnight, worked with pins and quick stitches, adjusting the fit. She'll do, Patricia said finally, stepping back to assess her work. It was 4 a.m. The wedding was in 16 hours. With the veil, she'll do. Lena looked at herself in the full-length mirror and saw a stranger. A blonde girl in a wedding dress, her face painted into someone else's features, her body wrapped in silk and lies. Practice walking, Patricia commanded. The ceremony is at the cathedral. You'll enter from the rear, walk down the center aisle. The veil stays down until Adrian lifts it at the altar. By then, it will be too late. Too late for what? Lena asked, for him to object. They made her practice for 2 hours. Walking in heels she wasn't accustomed to, maintaining posture, keeping her head at the correct angle. Patricia had obtained video of Victoria walking, and they studied it frame by frame, forcing Lena to mimic every detail. Shoulders back, chin up. You're walking toward your triumph, not your execution. Except it felt like an execution. Dawn broke gray and cold. Lena was released to her small room for a few hours of rest, though sleep was impossible. She lay on her narrow bed, still in the dress because Patricia feared she'd damage it if she removed it, and stared at the ceiling. She thought about running. The window was right there. She could climb out, make it to the street, disappear into the city, but where would she go? And what would Patricia do in retaliation? The trap had no exits. It never had. The Cathedral of St. Catherine was over 200 years old, a Gothic monument to old money and older power. Lena had been inside once, years ago, when her father had brought her to a Christmas service. She'd marveled at the vaulted ceilings, the stained glass windows depicting saints and martyrs, the sense of sacred permanence. Now it felt like a tomb. The bride's preparation room was small and overheated. Patricia had banned everyone except the photographer and his assistant, minimizing the number of people who might notice the substitution. The photographer was being paid extra for his discretion, or his blindness. He took test shots of Lena with professional efficiency, never quite meeting her eyes. "Beautiful," he murmured, adjusting his lens. "The veil catches the light perfectly." The veil was heavy, thick enough to obscure her features. Patricia had chosen it specifically for its opacity. Tradition dictated that the groom couldn't see his bride's face until the altar, and Patricia was weaponizing that tradition. 10 minutes, Patricia announced, checking her phone. Adrian has arrived. His people are in position. The guests are seated. She turned to Lena, her expression unreadable. Last chance to perfect your composure. When you walk down that aisle, you are Victoria Voss, confident, entitled, slightly bored by the whole affair. Can you do that? Lena nodded mechanically. Say it. I'm Victoria Voss. Again, with conviction. I'm Victoria Voss. Patricia studied her for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, her expression softened. Just slightly. Just for a second. For what it's worth, you look more like your father than Victoria ever did. He'd have been proud of your strength. The unexpected sentiment hit harder than any cruelty could have. Lena's throat tightened, tears threatening to ruin the careful makeup. Don't, Patricia said immediately, the softness vanishing. Don't cry. Don't feel. Just walk. The cathedral doors opened. Music swelled, something classical and ornate that Lena didn't recognize. Through the veil, she could see the long aisle stretching before her, lined with flowers and candles, and hundreds of faces turned toward her in anticipation. And at the end of that aisle, standing before the altar, was Adrian Cade. She'd seen pictures, of course. Everyone had. The media loved him. The mysterious entrepreneur, the self-made billionaire, the man who moved through society's highest circles while rumors of his darker dealings swirled like smoke. He photographed well, all sharp angles and intense eyes. In person, he was different. Taller than she'd expected. Broader in the shoulders. He wore a black tuxedo that fit him like it had been grown rather than tailored, and he stood with the stillness of someone who'd learned to control every muscle, every breath, every tell. But it was his face that caught her. He wasn't handsome in the conventional sense. His features were too harsh, too angular, carved from something harder than mere bone. His jaw could cut glass. His nose had been broken at least once. His eyes, even from this distance, even through the veil, were the color of winter ice. And they were fixed on her with an intensity that made her stumble. Patricia's hand pressed against her back, steadying her. Walk. Lena walked. Each step felt like crossing an ocean. The cathedral stretched impossibly long, the music building to something that felt more like a funeral march than a wedding processional. Faces blurred past on either side. Society's elite, crime lords in expensive suits, politicians who'd learned to look the other way, businessmen who'd found profit in moral flexibility. Adrian Cade's empire gathered to witness his coronation. She was 20 steps away. 15. 10. His expression hadn't changed. He watched her approach with the focus of a predator tracking prey, his body absolutely still except for his eyes, which followed her every movement. 5 steps. Patricia released her, stepping back to take her place among the guests. Lena stood alone now, just her and Adrian and the priest and an altar that felt like a sacrificial stone. "Dearly beloved," the priest began, his voice echoing in the vast space. "We are gathered here today." The words washed over her, meaningless, legal phrases, religious tradition, the machinery of binding. "If anyone has cause to object to this union, speak now or forever hold your peace." Silence. Of course there was silence. No one objected to Adrian Cade's decisions, not out loud, not if they wanted to keep breathing. "Adrian Cade, do you take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" "I do." His voice was deeper than she'd expected, rough around the edges, like gravel wrapped in silk. "And do you—" the priest faltered, glancing at his notes. Patricia had probably given him specific instructions about the name. "Take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" This was it. The moment. The point of no return. Lena opened her mouth, and for one wild second, she considered saying no. Throwing off the veil, revealing the deception, letting the whole elaborate lie collapse. But then what? "I do," she whispered. "Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." Adrian stepped closer, and Lena's heart hammered against her ribs. This was when he'd know. The moment he lifted the veil, he'd see that she wasn't Victoria, and then his hands were steady as he reached for the veil, careful, almost gentle. He lifted it slowly, the heavy fabric rising like a curtain on opening night. Their eyes met, and Adrian Cade smiled. Not a surprised smile, not a confused smile, a knowing smile. "Hello, Lena," he said quietly, so only she could hear. "I've been waiting for you." Then he kissed her. The cathedral erupted in applause, and Lena's world shattered into 1,000 pieces of confusion and terror, and something she couldn't name. He knew. He'd known all along. The reception was held at the Cade Tower, a gleaming monument to modern architecture and barely concealed menace. Adrian owned the entire building, 50 floors of luxury apartments, high-end retail, and on the top floor a penthouse that commanded views of the entire city. Lena sat at the head table in a daze, her hand trapped beneath Adrian's on the white tablecloth. He'd held it since they left the cathedral, his grip firm but not painful, possessive but not cruel. He'd spoken to her exactly once during the car ride. "Don't panic. You're safe." Safe. The word felt like a foreign language. The ballroom was magnificent, all crystal and gold and excessive wealth. Champagne flowed. A string quartet played Mozart. Distinguished guests offered toast to the happy couple, their smiles brittle with calculation. Adrian accepted congratulations with practiced ease, his responses polite and empty, but his attention never wavered from Lena. Every few minutes his thumb would stroke across her knuckles, a gesture that might have looked affectionate to observers but felt like a reminder. "I know who you are. I'm watching you." "Smile," he murmured during one particularly effusive toast. "You're supposed to be happy." "I don't understand," Lena whispered back. "You knew. Why didn't you—" "Not here. Later." Later stretched into eternity. The reception followed a precise script: dinner, toasts, the cutting of an elaborate cake, a first dance that Lena fumbled through while Adrian guided her with surprising skill. "You dance like someone who's never been allowed to learn," he observed as they circled the floor. His hand rested on her waist, properly positioned, keeping her at the exact distance that propriety demanded. "I haven't. Victoria had lessons. 5 years with a private instructor. I'm not Victoria. No." His eyes studied her face with unnerving intensity. "You're substantially more interesting." The dance ended. Adrian led her back to the table, his hand never leaving the small of her back. Patricia materialized from somewhere in the crowd, her expression a masterpiece of concealed panic. "Mr. Cade, if I could have a moment—" "Later, Mrs. Voss." Adrian's smile was polite and absolute. "I'm sure you understand. My wife and I are eager to begin our honeymoon." "Wife." The word landed like a bomb. They left 20 minutes later, slipping away while the party continued without them. A private elevator carried them to the penthouse, the city dropping away beneath their feet. Lena's mind raced through scenarios, each worse than the last. He knew about the deception. He'd known at the altar, probably before, which meant he'd allowed it to proceed, which meant he wanted something. The question was what? The elevator doors opened directly into the penthouse. Lena stepped into a space that defied her understanding of residential living. Floor-to-ceiling windows wrapped 3 walls, offering a panoramic view of the city lit up like a circuit board. The interior was modern and sparse, expensive furniture arranged with mathematical precision, artwork that probably cost more than houses, a kitchen that looked unused. It looked like a place where someone lived but didn't live. A beautiful, sterile cage. "You can take off the dress," Adrian said, shrugging out of his tuxedo jacket. "There's a bedroom through there. You'll find clothes in your size." "How did you—" "I've known about the substitution for 3 days." 3 days. While Lena had been bleached and plucked and transformed, while Patricia had spun her desperate plan, while the whole deception had been constructed, he'd known. "I don't understand," Lena said again. The words felt inadequate, but her brain couldn't produce anything better. Adrian moved to the bar, pouring 2 glasses of something amber. He offered one to Lena, who took it automatically. "Drink. It'll help." She drank. Whiskey, smooth and expensive, burning down her throat. "Victoria ran," Adrian said, settling into a chair that faced the windows. 3 nights ago. I knew within an hour. I have people watching the Voss estate. I have people watching most things. And you didn't stop the wedding." "No." "Why not?" He was quiet for a long moment, studying his glass. When he spoke, his voice carried an edge she hadn't heard before, something raw and honest beneath the controlled surface. "Because I didn't want Victoria. I never wanted Victoria." The room tilted slightly. Lena sat down before her legs gave out. "The contract was negotiated by Patricia Voss, who was desperate to secure protection and social legitimacy for her daughter. I agreed because it was advantageous, but the contract specified a Voss daughter." His smile was sharp. "It didn't specify which one." "I'm not her daughter, I'm her stepdaughter. Legally, I'm not even— You're James Voss's daughter. You're the legitimate heir to the Voss estate and the Voss family holdings. You're substantially more valuable than Victoria ever was." Valuable. The word caught in her chest. "Your stepmother has been embezzling from your inheritance for years," Adrian continued, "bleeding the trust fund your father established, selling off assets, running the family business into the ground while maintaining appearances. You're essentially penniless, despite being the rightful owner of a considerable fortune." Lena processed this information slowly, each word a small explosion. "How do you know all this?" "I make it my business to know things, especially about people I'm considering marrying." "You weren't considering marrying me. You didn't know Patricia would substitute me until— I've known about you for 18 months, Lena." He set down his glass, leaning forward slightly. "I've been watching the Voss family for longer than that, but you specifically caught my attention 18 months ago. You were cleaning windows on the 3rd floor and you nearly fell. Do you remember?" She did. Victoria had startled her, deliberately, laughing as Lena had struggled for balance on the ladder. "I was driving past. I saw you catch yourself. Then I saw you continue working, even though your hands were shaking. And I thought, there's someone interesting, someone strong, someone who survives." This was insane. All of it was insane. "You could have stopped this entire charade," Lena said. "You could have called off the wedding, renegotiated with Patricia. You didn't need to— To what? Let you keep living in that house, being treated like a servant in your own home? Let Patricia continue stealing your inheritance? Let Victoria marry some other fool?" He shook his head. "This was your exit, Lena. I just provided the door. By forcing me into a marriage I didn't choose. You chose to walk down that aisle. I didn't have a choice." "Everyone has a choice." He stood, moving to the window. "But I'll grant you that yours were limited, which is why I'm offering you a better one." Here it comes, Lena thought. The trap springs. "The marriage is legal," Adrian said. "The contracts are binding. Patricia got what she wanted. Protection, legitimacy, a connection to my organization. She just didn't get the daughter she wanted to sacrifice." His reflection in the glass was dark and sharp. Now you have a choice. What choice? Option 1. I have the marriage annulled. It'll take some paperwork, some discretion, but it can be done. You walk away with enough money to start over somewhere else. New city, new name, new life. Patricia never touches you again. It was more than Lena had dreamed possible. A clean escape, freedom, safety. What's option 2? Adrian turned to face her. You stay. You become my actual wife, my partner. You help me build and maintain my empire. In return, I give you everything, your inheritance restored, your position in society reclaimed, power, protection, and purpose. I don't know anything about your world. I'm not qualified to. You survived 8 years in a hostile environment with no resources and no allies. You maintained your dignity while being systematically erased. You're substantially more qualified than most people I work with. You want me to help you run a criminal empire? I want you to help me run an empire. The criminal part is incidental. Lena's laugh came out slightly hysterical. I can't believe this is happening. Believe it, and make a choice. He checked his watch. You have until midnight. That gives you 4 hours to think, to ask questions, to decide what you want your life to become. And if I choose option 1, then I'll have a lawyer here at 12:01, and by morning, you'll be free. Why would you do that? If I'm so valuable, why let me go? For the first time, something flickered across Adrian's face, something that might have been respect. Because I don't keep people who don't choose to stay. I've built everything I have on understanding motivation, on knowing what drives people. If you don't want this life, forcing you into it would be pointless. You'd be miserable, resentful, useless to me. He paused. But if you do want it, if you choose it, then you'll be extraordinary. He left her alone then, disappearing into another part of the penthouse. Lena sat in the vast living room, surrounded by windows and city lights, and tried to think. Option 1 was safe, logical. It offered escape from Patricia, from the trap of the Voss estate, from the impossible situation she'd been forced into. But it also offered nothing else. No home, no purpose, no sense of belonging. She'd be free, yes, but free to do what? Exist somewhere else, equally invisible? Option 2 was dangerous, probably insane. It meant staying with a man who killed people, or had them killed, as part of his business operations. It meant entering a world she didn't understand, learning rules she'd never been taught. But it also offered something she'd never had. Power. Not the power to hurt people, though that would come. The power to choose, to matter, to be seen. Lena walked to the window, pressing her palm against the glass. The city spread below her, infinite and glittering. Somewhere down there was the Voss estate, where she'd spent 8 years becoming invisible. She thought about her father, about the way he'd smiled when she'd brought him her report cards. You're brilliant, Lena. You can be anything you want. He'd been wrong about Patricia, but maybe he'd been right about her. Maybe she could be anything, even this. The clock on the wall showed 11:47. 13 minutes to choose. Lena thought about Victoria, probably in Paris by now, spending money she hadn't earned, treating waiters like servants, blissfully unaware that her escape had created this impossible opportunity. She thought about Patricia, who'd believed Lena was so thoroughly broken that she could be used and discarded. She thought about herself at 15, locked in that basement, counting hours in the dark. You survived, she told herself. You're still here. At 11:59, she found Adrian in his office, a dark-paneled room lined with books and screens showing security feeds from around the city. I have questions, she said. He looked up from the document he was reading. 60 seconds. Make them count. If I stay, do you expect me to be a real wife, physically? Not unless you want to be. The marriage is primarily strategic. Will you hurt me? No. Will you protect me from people who try to hurt me? Yes. Will you teach me how this world works? Actually teach me, not just expect me to figure it out? Yes. Last question. She took a breath. If I choose this, can I ever change my mind? Adrian set down his pen, giving her his full attention. Yes. But I'll make you an offer you'll find difficult to refuse. Stay for 6 months. Learn the business. Learn what this life means. Then, if you want to leave, I'll honor option 1. Money, freedom, clean break. 6 months. Think of it as a trial period for both of us. The clock on the wall ticked to midnight. I'll stay, Lena said. And somewhere in the night, her old life ended. The first morning, Lena woke up in a bed that felt like sleeping on a cloud, disoriented and alone. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows she'd forgotten to cover, and for one confused moment she thought she was still in the servants' quarters, about to be yelled at for oversleeping. Then she remembered. The wedding. The veil. Adrian's knowing smile. I'll stay. Her stomach twisted. She sat up slowly, taking inventory of the massive bedroom. Her bedroom, apparently. Adrian had shown her to it around 1 in the morning after they'd spent an hour discussing logistics in his office. The conversation had been surreal, discussing bank accounts and security protocols and which rooms were off limits, like they were planning a vacation instead of a strategic marriage. The East Wing is mine, he'd said. The West Wing is yours. The middle, kitchen, living spaces, offices, is shared territory. You can redecorate your space however you want. Budget is unlimited. I don't need to redecorate. You'll want to, eventually. He'd paused at her bedroom door. Try to get some sleep. Tomorrow starts early. Tomorrow was today, and Lena had no idea what early meant. She found clothes in the walk-in closet. Not her clothes, obviously, but things in her size. Expensive casual wear, designer jeans, silk blouses, cashmere sweaters. A small fortune in fabric she'd never asked for. She chose the simplest outfit she could find, dark jeans and a black sweater. Her reflection in the mirror still looked wrong. The blonde hair, Victoria's face staring back at her. She'd need to figure out what to do about that. Maybe let it grow out. Maybe dye it back. Maybe keep it and become someone new entirely. The thought was dizzying. She found Adrian in the kitchen, which surprised her. Somehow she'd expected him to have staff for everything, invisible servants producing meals at the snap of his fingers. Instead, he stood at the counter making coffee, dressed in dark slacks and a white shirt rolled to his elbows. You cook? She asked. He glanced over. I make coffee. There's a difference. Hungry? I don't know. That means yes. He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. Breakfast will arrive in 20 minutes. Sit. Lena sat at the island, watching him pour 2 cups of coffee with the efficiency of someone who'd done it 1,000 times. He slid one across to her, black and strong. I don't drink it black, she said. Learn. Cream and sugar are crutches. But he pulled both from a cabinet anyway, setting them in front of her. Your choice? She added cream, just enough to make it bearable, and took a careful sip. It was good coffee. Probably cost more per pound than she used to spend on food in a week. Tell me about your stepmother, Adrian said, leaning against the counter. The unedited version. Why? Because we're about to dismantle her carefully constructed life, and I need to know what motivates her, what she values, what she fears. The casual way he said dismantle sent a chill down Lena's spine. This was real. She was really doing this. She married my father for his money, Lena said slowly, but she loved the status more. Being Mrs. James Voss opened doors. Society events, charity boards, the kind of power that comes from having the right last name. And when he died, she made sure everyone believed she was the grieving widow. Generous donations to his favorite causes, tasteful mourning clothes, all while systematically transferring assets into her name and Victoria's. Adrian nodded, like this confirmed something he'd already suspected. Your father's will? Left everything in trust for me until I turned 25. Patricia is the trustee. Lena's laugh was bitter, which means she controls it all for another 4 years. Controlled, Adrian corrected. Past tense. As of midnight last night, I filed paperwork with the probate court challenging the trust administration. We'll have an emergency hearing within the week. Lena nearly dropped her coffee. You can do that? I can do a lot of things. The question is whether you're ready for the consequences. What consequences? Patricia will fight back, publicly, viciously. She'll claim you're unstable, that I manipulated you, that the marriage is a fraud. The society pages will have a field day. Your life will become extremely uncomfortable for a while. The doorbell rang. Adrian went to answer it, returning with 2 bags from a restaurant Lena recognized from magazine spreads. places where appetizers cost $50 and reservations were booked months in advance. He unpacked the bags methodically. Eggs Benedict, fresh fruit, pastries that smelled like they'd been baked minutes ago. He arranged everything on plates with surprising care, then sat across from her. Eat. Then we talk about today. Lena picked at the eggs, her appetite still uncertain. What happens today? Orientation. You need to understand what you've agreed to before you're thrown into it. I thought I had 6 months to learn. You do. But the world doesn't know that. As far as everyone's concerned, you're my wife now, which means you're a target. He cut into his food with precise movements. I have enemies. A lot of them. Some will try to get to me through you. You need to know who they are and how to recognize threats. This is insane. Yes, but you chose it. His eyes met hers. Having second thoughts? She should be. Any rational person would be running for the door. But Lena found herself thinking about the Voss estate, about scrubbing floors while Patricia entertained guests overhead, about Victoria's casual cruelty, about 8 years of being nothing. No, she said. No second thoughts. Good. Finish your breakfast. Marcus will be here in an hour. Who's Marcus? Head of my security. Former special forces, 3 tours overseas, excellent judge of character. He'll assess your situation and assign you a protection detail. I need bodyguards? Adrian's smile was grim. You married me. You need an army. Marcus arrived exactly 60 minutes later, which Lena would learn was typical. He was built like someone had carved him from granite, with close-cropped gray hair and eyes that took in everything without seeming to look at anything. Mrs. Cade, he said, shaking her hand. His grip was firm but not crushing, professional. Lena, please. Ma'am. He turned to Adrian. We need to discuss the situation. They moved to Adrian's office, where Marcus pulled up files on a tablet, photographs, documents, surveillance footage. He ran through scenarios with the detachment of someone discussing weather patterns. Your stepmother hired a photographer yesterday, he said, showing Lena an image of a man with a long-lens camera. Freelance, works for tabloids. She's shopping a story about the substitution. Lena's blood went cold. Already? She's desperate. The wedding bought her time, but she knows it won't last. She's trying to control the narrative. Marcus swiped to another image. We intercepted her emails. She's also retained Samantha Chen. Adrian's expression darkened. Interesting choice. Who's Samantha Chen? Lena asked. The best publicist in the city, Marcus said. Specializes in crisis management and reputation rehabilitation. If Patricia hired her, she's planning a full media offensive. Can we stop it? We can counter it. Adrian stood, moving to the window. Marcus, I want surveillance on Patricia and Victoria, everything. Phone taps, email monitoring, physical observation. I want to know what they're planning before they plan it. Already in motion. I've also assigned Kelly Park to Mrs. Cade's detail. She'll start tomorrow. Good. Anything else? Marcus hesitated, which seemed significant. The Volkov situation is escalating. Ivan made contact yesterday. He wants a meeting. Tell him no. He's insisting, says it's about the wedding, about the Voss connection. Adrian was quiet for a moment, his jaw tight. Schedule it for Thursday. Neutral ground. Full security. After Marcus left, Lena waited for an explanation. When none came, she asked directly, Who's Ivan Volkov? Someone I used to work with. Now we're competitors. Adrian returned to his desk, opening his laptop. He controls the eastern districts. Gambling, mostly. Some loan operations. We have an understanding. He stays out of my territory. I stay out of his. And he cares about our marriage. Why? Because it shifts the balance of power. Your family's connections, your social standing, those things matter in my world. Ivan probably sees it as a threat. What if he tries to... Lena couldn't quite finish the sentence. Hurt you? He won't. Adrian's voice carried absolute certainty. Because he knows what I'll do if he tries. The rest of the day passed in a blur of information. Adrian walked her through his organization's structure. Legitimate businesses providing cover for less legitimate operations, money flowing through complicated channels she struggled to track. He showed her files on key players, allies and enemies, people in between. You don't need to memorize everything. he said around hour 3, when her eyes started glazing over. You just need to understand the basics. Who to trust, who to avoid, who to watch carefully. I don't know how you keep it all straight. Practice and a good memory. He closed the laptop. Enough for today. You look exhausted. She was. The weight of the past 48 hours was settling on her shoulders like concrete. Can I ask you something? She said. Always. Why me? Really, not the strategic reasons or the trust fund or any of that. Why did you actually want this? Adrian studied her for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was quieter than usual. You want the honest answer? Yes. I saw you refuse to break. Day after day, year after year, in a situation that should have destroyed you. And I thought, that's the kind of strength I need beside me. Not someone who's never been tested. Someone who's been through fire and came out steel. The words hit something deep in Lena's chest. No one had ever called her strong. Invisible, yes. Convenient. Forgettable. But strong? I don't feel strong, she admitted. You wouldn't. Strong people rarely do. He stood. Get some rest. Tomorrow we deal with Patricia. That night, Lena lay in her enormous bed and tried to process everything. Her life had become unrecognizable. 24 hours ago, she'd been a servant. Now she was married to one of the most dangerous men in the city, learning about criminal enterprises and power structures like they were normal dinner conversation. She should be terrified. The strange thing was, she wasn't, or not exactly. There was fear, yes, but underneath it, something else. Something that felt almost like anticipation. Maybe Adrian was right. Maybe she was stronger than she'd thought. The next morning brought Kelly Park, a compact Korean woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She arrived at 7, introduced herself with military precision, and immediately began assessing the penthouse security. Windows are vulnerable, she noted, walking the perimeter. Too much glass. I'll have additional sensors installed. Is that necessary? Lena asked. You're married to Adrian Cade. Yes. Kelly pulled out a tablet. I need to know your patterns. Where you go, when, with whom, daily routines, preferences, habits. I don't really have routines, I just got here. Then we'll establish them together. You need consistency, predictability, at least in controlled environments. It makes protection easier. Kelly's expression softened slightly. I know this is overwhelming, but my job is keeping you alive, and I take it seriously. Has anyone actually tried to kill Adrian's previous partners? He hasn't had partners. Not like this. Kelly glanced toward Adrian's office, where he was on a call. You're the first person he's brought into his real life, which makes you unprecedented, and targets always are. The words settled uneasily. Lena was about to ask more when Adrian emerged, already dressed for the day in another perfectly tailored suit. Ready? He asked Lena. For what? We're going to visit Patricia. The Voss estate looked exactly as Lena had left it 3 days ago. Imposing stone facade, manicured gardens, the weight of old money and older secrets. But arriving in Adrian's black SUV, flanked by security, changed the perspective entirely. She wasn't sneaking in through the servants' entrance anymore. Patricia opened the door herself, which meant she'd seen them coming and dismissed the actual staff. Her expression was controlled fury wrapped in social graces. Lena, Mr. Cade, what an unexpected visit. Is it? Adrian asked mildly. You've been spreading stories about our marriage. Seems reasonable to address them directly. Patricia's smile tightened. I don't know what you mean. The photographer you hired, the publicist, the emails to 3 different tabloids. Adrian walked past her into the foyer without waiting for invitation. Should I continue, or shall we skip the pretense? Lena followed, her heart pounding. She'd walked these halls 1,000 times, always small, always careful. Now with Adrian beside her and Kelly at her back, the space felt different, smaller. Patricia recovered quickly. Perhaps we should discuss this in the sitting room. Perfect. Adrian settled into the chair that had been James Voss's favorite, the power move obvious. Let's discuss how you've been embezzling from Lena's trust fund. The color drained from Patricia's face. I have no idea what... 18 million over 8 years. You've been creative about it, Shell companies, fake invoices, property transfers to Victoria, but not creative enough. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through something. I have documentation, all of it, enough to have you arrested for fraud, theft, and breach of fiduciary duty. You're bluffing. Am I? He turned the phone toward her. This is the account in the Caymans, the one you thought was untraceable. I've had forensic accountants working on your finances for 6 months. 6 months. Before the wedding, before Victoria ran, Adrian had been planning this. Patricia sat down slowly, her composure cracking. What do you want? Simple. You stop talking to the press. You stop trying to undermine Lena. You cooperate fully with the trust transfer. And in return, I don't press charges. That's blackmail. That's a generous offer. The alternative is federal prison. His voice stayed pleasant, conversational. Your choice. Lena watched her stepmother's face cycle through emotions. Rage, fear, calculation. Finally, Patricia turned to her. You really think you can handle his world? You couldn't even handle keeping this house clean. The words were designed to cut, to reduce Lena back to what she'd been. A year ago, they would have worked. I'm not asking for your approval, Lena said quietly. I'm telling you it's over. You don't control me anymore. You don't control my inheritance. You're done. You ungrateful, careful. Adrian's voice dropped to something dangerous. You're speaking to my wife, and I take that seriously. The room went silent. Patricia seemed to shrink, her power evaporating. After 8 years of tyranny, it was stunning how quickly she collapsed when someone finally pushed back. I'll need the cooperation agreement in writing, Patricia finally said. Already prepared. Adrian produced documents from his briefcase. Sign these, today. My lawyers will file the trust modification tomorrow. Patricia read through the papers, her hands shaking slightly. When she reached for a pen, Lena felt something loosen in her chest. Not relief exactly. Something bigger. Freedom. They left 20 minutes later, the signed document secured in Adrian's briefcase. Lena didn't look back at the house as they drove away. There was nothing there she wanted anymore. You did well, Adrian said as the estate disappeared behind them. I barely said anything. You said enough. And you didn't apologize. That matters. Kelly driving caught Lena's eye in the rearview mirror. There might have been approval there. Back at the penthouse, Lena found a package waiting, a large box with her name on it. Inside were books, dozens of them. Business strategy, negotiation, finance, criminal psychology. A handwritten note sat on top in Adrian's precise script. You'll need these. Start with the blue one. The blue book was titled The Art of Reading People. Lena flipped it open, found the first chapter, and started reading. The following days developed a rhythm. Mornings with Adrian, learning the business. Afternoons with Kelly, learning security protocols and self-defense basics. Evenings studying, absorbing information like she was preparing for the world's strangest final exam. You're a fast learner, Adrian observed on day 4, reviewing her notes on a recent negotiation he'd let her observe. Faster than I expected. I spent 8 years watching Patricia manipulate people. I learned something, even if I didn't realize it. Good. Use it. The trust fund transfer went through on Friday. Lena woke up to an email from a lawyer she'd never met, informing her that she now had full control of her inheritance. The number in her account was staggering. She walked to Adrian's office in a daze. This can't be real. He glanced at her bank statement. It's real, minus what Patricia stole, plus the investments your father made that actually performed well. You're quite wealthy, Lena. I don't know what to do with it. You'll learn. For now, just don't let Patricia near it again. He closed his laptop. We have the Volkov meeting on Thursday. I want you there. Why? Because you're my wife, because it sends a message, and because I want Ivan to see what he's dealing with. I'm not intimidating. You don't need to be intimidating. You need to be present, observant, smart. He stood, moving around the desk. You think power is about threats and violence. Sometimes it is. But more often, it's about perception, about making people believe you're untouchable. Are we? Untouchable? His smile was sharp. Let's find out. Thursday arrived too quickly. Lena dressed carefully, a designer suit Kelly had selected, expensive but understated. Adrian had coached her through what to expect. A restaurant, private room, Ivan and probably two of his people. Heavy security outside. Don't speak unless spoken to, he'd said. Watch him. Watch his reactions. You'll learn more from what he doesn't say than what he does. The restaurant was Italian, old school, the kind of place where the owner knew everyone's name and nobody looked at the prices. They were escorted to a private room in the back where Ivan Volkov waited. He was older than Lena expected, mid-50s, gray-haired, with the kind of weathered face that suggested a hard life survived. He stood when they entered, his smile broad, but his eyes calculating. Adrian, finally. And this must be the famous bride. Lena, Adrian said, his hand on her back. My wife. Enchanted. Ivan's handshake was firm. I've heard interesting stories about your wedding. Very dramatic. Weddings often are, Adrian said smoothly, taking a seat. Lena sat beside him, Kelly positioned discreetly near the door. Indeed, though yours more than most. Ivan poured wine with the ease of someone comfortable in his power. A last-minute substitution, very creative. Family complications, Adrian said. I'm sure you understand. Oh, I understand perfectly. What I don't understand is why you didn't inform your associates. We have agreements, Adrian. Partnerships that require transparency. The marriage doesn't affect our agreements, doesn't it? The Voss family has connections we've found, inconvenient in the past, society connections, political connections, and now those belong to you. This was the real conversation, Lena realized. Not congratulations. Territorial negotiation. The Voss connections belong to my wife, Adrian corrected, and her interests don't intersect with our business. Yet. Ivan turned his attention to Lena. Tell me, Mrs. Cade, what do you know about your husband's work? It was a test. Lena could feel Adrian tense slightly beside her, ready to intervene if needed, but she remembered his advice. Watch. Listen. Be present. Enough to know when someone's trying to provoke him, she said calmly, and enough to know it won't work. Ivan's eyebrows rose. Then he laughed, genuine and surprised. She has teeth, I like that. Adrian, you chose well. I know. The rest of the meeting proceeded carefully, Ivan probing for weaknesses, Adrian deflecting with practiced ease, both men engaged in a dance of threat and counter-threat disguised as friendly conversation. Lena stayed quiet, watching like Adrian had instructed, noting the tells. How Ivan's hand tightened on his glass when the Eastern Territories were mentioned, how his smile froze when Adrian brought up gambling revenues. They left an hour later with nothing resolved but nothing destroyed either. Status quo maintained. You handled that well, Adrian said in the car. I barely said anything. You said enough, and you didn't flinch. Ivan respects that. He looked at her thoughtfully. You're ready for the next step. What's the next step? The Winterlight Gala, 2 weeks from now. Every major player in the city will be there. It's time to introduce you properly. Lena's stomach dropped. That's not a next step. That's throwing me off a cliff. Same thing in my world. His smile was almost sympathetic. But you won't be alone, and by the time we're done, everyone will know exactly who you are. The problem, Lena thought as they drove through the city lights, was that she was still figuring that out herself. But she had 2 weeks to decide. 2 weeks to transform from invisible to inevitable. 2 weeks to become someone even she didn't recognize yet. She looked at her reflection in the car window, blonde hair, expensive clothes, sitting beside one of the most dangerous men in the city like it was normal. Maybe she was already someone new. Maybe she had been all along just waiting for permission to exist. The thought terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. The dress arrived 1 week before the Winterlight Gala, delivered in a box the size of a small coffin. Lena stared at it for a full minute before opening it, her stomach tight with something between anticipation and dread. Inside was midnight blue silk, almost black in certain light, with a neckline that would make Patricia faint and a slit that went higher than anything Lena had ever worn. A note was pinned to the fabric in Adrian's handwriting. Wear this, trust me. She held it up to the light. The dress was beautiful in a dangerous way, the kind of thing that demanded confidence she wasn't sure she possessed. It's perfect, Kelly said from the doorway. She'd taken to appearing without warning, a habit Lena was slowly accepting. He has good taste when he focuses. It's revealing. It's powerful. There's a difference. Kelly stepped into the room, examining the dress critically. You'll need different shoes than what you own. And jewelry. Real pieces. Not the costume stuff. I don't have real jewelry. You do now. Adrian had his jeweler send options this morning. They're in your closet. Lena found 3 velvet boxes containing pieces that probably cost more than cars. Diamonds, sapphires, emeralds, each set more extravagant than the last. She closed the boxes quickly, overwhelmed. This is too much. This is the baseline, Kelly corrected. The Winterlight Gala isn't a party, it's theater. Everyone's performing their power, their wealth, their position. You need to perform too. I don't know how. Then learn fast. You've got 7 days. Those 7 days became a masterclass in transformation. A stylist named Marcus, not the security Marcus, a different one who spoke 3 languages and could tie a bow tie blindfolded, arrived daily to drill Lena on posture, movement, the subtle art of commanding space without saying a word. Chin up, shoulders back, but don't lock them, he instructed, circling her like a sculptor assessing marble. You want to look confident, not military, powerful, not rigid. I feel ridiculous. You look incredible. There's a difference. He adjusted the practice dress she wore. Walk again. Slower this time. You're not rushing to catch a bus. You're arriving. Lena walked the length of the penthouse living room for what felt like the 100th time. Marcus made small corrections. The angle of her head, the pace of her steps, how she held her hands when she wasn't holding anything. Better. Now imagine everyone's watching you, because they will be. That was the part that terrified her. Not the dress, or the jewelry, or the performance itself, but the watching. She'd spent 8 years trying to be invisible. Now she was supposed to demand attention. Adrian observed one of these sessions from his office doorway, arms crossed, expression unreadable. When Marcus finally released her for a break, Adrian intercepted. Walk for me. I just walked for 2 hours. Once more. She walked. He watched with the intensity he brought to everything, complete, focused, slightly unsettling. You're still apologizing with your posture, he said. I'm not apologizing. You are. Right here. He touched her shoulder blade gently, straightening her spine. You curl forward like you're trying to take up less space. Stop it. It's habit. Break it. You're not invisible anymore, Lena. Stop acting like you should be. His hands remained on her shoulders, firm but not heavy. The gala will be full of predators. They'll smell uncertainty like blood and water. You need to walk in there like you own the room. I don't own the room. I barely own myself. Fake it until it's real. That's how power works. He released her, stepping back. Again. She walked again, and again, until something shifted, some internal recalibration that made her spine straighter, her head higher, until she stopped apologizing for existing. There, Adrian said quietly. That's it. The day before the gala, Patricia called. Lena stared at her phone, watching it ring, debating whether to answer. Kelly, who was teaching her basic defensive techniques in the gym, noticed. Want me to handle it? No, I should. Lena answered. Hello? Lena. Patricia's voice was controlled venom. I thought we should talk before tomorrow night. We have nothing to talk about. Don't we? You'll be at the Winterlight Gala, playing dress-up as Adrian Cade's wife, pretending you belong in that world. I thought you might want some advice. I don't want anything from you. Then consider this a warning. Patricia's tone sharpened. You think you've won. You think having money and a powerful husband makes you untouchable. But you're still the same scared girl who couldn't stand up for herself. Tomorrow night, when everyone's watching, when the pressure's on, you'll fold, just like you always do. The words landed like punches, hitting old wounds with practiced precision. A month ago, they would have destroyed Lena. A month ago, she would have believed them. Are you finished? Lena asked. Excuse me? I asked if you're finished, because I have training to get back to. She looked at Kelly, who was watching with approval. You're right about one thing. Everyone will be watching tomorrow, but they won't see a scared girl. They'll see Adrian Cade's wife, and you'll see exactly how much I've changed. She hung up before Patricia could respond. Her hands shook slightly, adrenaline and old fear mixing with something new, something that felt like rage. Good, Kelly said. Use that anger. Channel it. Into what? Into not giving a damn what she thinks. Kelly tossed her a towel. Again. Defensive stance. They trained for another hour, Lena's muscles burning, her mind clearing. By the time they finished, Patricia's words had lost their sting. That night, Adrian found her in the library, a room she'd claimed as her own, filling it with the books he'd given her plus dozens more. She sat curled in an oversized chair, reading about negotiation tactics, making notes in the margins. Can't sleep? He asked. Nervous about tomorrow. He settled into the chair across from her. Want to know a secret? Always. I'm nervous too. That surprised her. You don't get nervous. I get strategically concerned. Same thing, different terminology. His smile was slight. This matters, Lena. Not the party itself. That's just theater. But what happens there sets the tone for everything else. How people see us. How they treat us. Whether they respect us or target us. No pressure. Exactly the right amount of pressure. He leaned forward slightly. You're going to make mistakes tomorrow. Everyone does their first time. The key is how you recover. Don't apologize. Don't explain. Just move forward like it was intentional. What if I completely freeze? You won't. You're tougher than you think. He stood, moving toward the door, and get some sleep. Tomorrow we make history. What kind of history? The kind where no one forgets your name. The morning of the gala arrived with deceptive calm. Lena woke early, her stomach a knot of anxiety that coffee couldn't untangle. She spent the morning reading, trying to distract herself, but the words blurred together. At noon, the stylist team arrived. Hair, makeup, nails, all the armor required for battle disguised as a party. They worked for 4 hours, transforming her piece by piece. The blonde was styled into old Hollywood waves. Her makeup was dramatic but precise, emphasizing her eyes until they looked larger, more intense. Her nails were painted deep red, the color of wine or blood. When they finally let her see herself in the mirror, Lena barely recognized her reflection. The woman looking back was polished, powerful, expensive, someone who belonged in Adrian Cade's world. Perfect, Marcus the stylist declared. Now the dress. The midnight blue silk felt like water against her skin, liquid and cool and impossibly light. It fit perfectly, because Adrian had somehow obtained her exact measurements. The neckline was dramatic but not vulgar, the slit revealing without exposing. She looked dangerous. The jewelry came last, sapphires and diamonds arranged in a necklace that must have cost a fortune. Kelly fastened it around her neck with steady hands. You look like someone who could ruin lives, Kelly said. Is that a compliment? In this world? Yes. Adrian was waiting in the living room, already dressed in a tuxedo that made him look like he'd been carved from shadows. He went still when he saw her, his expression unreadable for a long moment. Will I do? Lena asked, suddenly uncertain. You'll devastate. He offered his arm. Ready? No. Good. Neither was I on my first night, but I survived. His smile was sharp, and I had a lot less backup than you do. The Winterlight Gala was held at the Ashford Museum, a Beaux-Arts palace that housed the city's most prestigious art collection and, once a year, its most powerful players. They arrived fashionably late, as Adrian had planned, timing their entrance for maximum impact. The grand staircase leading up to the entrance was lined with photographers, their cameras flashing like lightning. Lena had seen pictures of this event before, in magazines Patricia used to read. She'd never imagined being on this side of the camera. Don't look at them, Adrian murmured as they approached. Look through them. She did, or tried to. The flashes were disorienting, voices shouting questions that blended into noise. Adrian guided her up the stairs with practiced ease, his hand firm on her waist, protective without being controlling. Inside, the museum had been transformed into something between an art gallery and a throne room. Crystal chandeliers caught light from 1,000 candles. Ice sculptures melted slowly into champagne fountains. Women in gowns that cost more than weddings circulated through rooms filled with men who decided the city's fate over drinks. Stay close, Adrian said quietly. Let me make the introductions. Listen more than you speak. And remember, everyone here wants something. They entered the main gallery, and Lena felt the moment the room noticed them. Conversations paused, eyes turned. The whispers started immediately, spreading like wildfire. Adrian Cade had arrived with his mysterious bride. Adrian. A man in his 60s approached, silver-haired and distinguished, with the kind of face that appeared on corporate boards. About time you showed up. Robert, always a pleasure. Adrian's handshake was firm. Allow me to introduce my wife, Lena. Mrs. Cade, charming. Robert's assessment was thorough and calculating. I heard interesting stories about your wedding. Very unconventional. Family weddings usually are, Lena said, channeling the composure Marcus had drilled into her. I'm sure yours was perfectly conventional. Something flickered in Robert's eyes. Surprise, maybe respect. 3 of them. All conventional, all expensive, all ended badly. He laughed. Perhaps unconventional is wiser. The next hour was a carefully choreographed dance. Adrian introduced her to dozens of people. Investors, politicians, business owners, criminals so polished they look legitimate. Each interaction was a test, each handshake a measurement of weakness or strength. Lena smiled when appropriate, spoke when necessary, and watched everything. She noted who deferred to Adrian and who challenged him, who looked at her with curiosity and who looked with calculation, who seemed genuine and who was performing. You're doing well, Adrian murmured during a brief moment alone. Better than well, actually. I'm terrified. It doesn't show. That's the important part. He guided her toward the bar. Champagne? I probably shouldn't drink. You definitely should. It helps. He ordered 2 glasses, handing her one. See the woman in red? By the Monet? Lena looked. The woman was stunning. Mid-30s, red dress that should have been illegal, dark hair styled severely. She was speaking with a group of men who hung on her every word. That's Elena Volkov, Ivan's daughter. Lena nearly dropped her champagne. He has a daughter and 3 sons. Elena runs his legitimate businesses. Very smart, very dangerous, very interested in expanding into territory I control. Adrian's voice was casual, but his eyes tracked Elena's every movement. She'll approach us eventually. When she does, be careful. Careful how? She'll seem friendly, charming, like she wants to be your friend. Don't fall for it. She collects information like some people collect art. Before Lena could respond, Elena turned. Their eyes met across the gallery. Elena smiled, said something to her companions, and started walking toward them. Too late, Adrian muttered. Remember what I said. Elena arrived like a force of nature, her smile bright and sharp. Adrian, I was beginning to think you'd avoid me all night. Elena, you look dangerous as always. I try. Her attention shifted to Lena, assessment happening in milliseconds. And this must be the famous replacement bride. I've heard so much about you. Have you? Lena kept her voice neutral, remembering Adrian's warning. Oh yes, the whole city's talking about your wedding. Very romantic, very dramatic, very... Elena paused, her smile widening. Convenient for Adrian. Tell me, how are you adjusting to your new life? Quickly, Lena met her gaze directly. I'm a fast learner. I'm sure you are. It must be quite different from your previous circumstances. The words were poisoned honey, sweet and lethal. From what I understand, you were virtually a servant in your own home. How liberating this must be. Adrian's hand tightened slightly on Lena's waist, a silent warning to stay calm. But Lena had spent 8 years enduring Patricia's cruelty. Elena Volkov, for all her polish and power, was just another bully with better clothes. It is liberating, Lena said smoothly, though I've found that understanding servitude makes one better at recognizing it in others. For instance, I can tell when someone's working very hard to appear threatening. Usually it means they're nervous about something. Elena's smile froze for a fraction of a second. Interesting theory, isn't it? I've been reading a lot about power dynamics lately. Fascinating subject. The performances we put on, the masks we wear. Lena tilted her head slightly. We're all performing tonight, aren't we? The question is who's performing confidence and who's performing control they don't actually have. The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut. Adrian's expression remained neutral, but Lena felt him tense beside her, ready to intervene if necessary. Then Elena laughed. Real laughter, genuine and surprised. I like her, Adrian. Where did you find this one? She found me, Adrian said, his voice carrying an edge. Anything else, Elena? Just a friendly conversation. We're neighbors, after all. We should be civil. Elena's eyes flicked between them. Though I'll admit I'm curious. This marriage gives you access to circles my father and I have been trying to crack for years. The society connections, the old money networks. Very clever. Thank you. I wasn't complimenting you. I was acknowledging a strategic move. Elena took a sip of her champagne. But strategy only works if all the pieces cooperate. I wonder how your new wife will handle the realities of your business when they become less theoretical. I handle them fine, Lena said before Adrian could respond. Do you? You've been married, what, 2 weeks? Wait until the first time someone threatens your life, or tries to buy your loyalty, or worse. Elena's smile sharpened. This world eats people like you, pretty girls from good families who think they can survive on charm and their husband's protection. Good thing I'm not surviving on charm, then. Lena set down her champagne glass with deliberate care. I'm surviving on the same thing you are. The understanding that power is just convincing other people you have it. And right now, I'm very convincing. For a long moment, Elena just stared at her. Then she nodded, something like respect crossing her features. Maybe you will survive. That would be interesting. She glanced at Adrian. Your wife has teeth. Don't let anyone file them down. She walked away, leaving Lena's heart pounding and her hands shaking. Adrian waited until Elena was out of earshot before speaking. That was either brilliant or suicidal. I haven't decided which. Did I mess up? No. You stood your ground against someone who terrifies most people. She was testing you, and you passed. His smile was approving. Though you just made an enemy. I thought I already had one. Now you have one who respects you. That's different. More dangerous, but more useful. He guided her toward a quieter corner of the gallery. You need a break. This room is exhausting, even for people used to it. They stepped out onto a balcony overlooking the museum's sculpture garden. The night air was cool, cutting through the overheated gallery. Lena leaned against the stone railing, trying to steady her breathing. I think I'm going to be sick. Not in that dress, you're not. It costs more than a car. Adrian stood beside her, his presence solid and strangely comforting. You did well in there. Better than I expected. I didn't know what I was doing? Neither does anyone else. That's the secret. He was quiet for a moment. Elena was right about one thing. This world does eat people, and it will try to eat you. But I think you're tougher than she realizes. Why? Because you've already survived worse. Patricia broke most people. She didn't break you. The words settled something in Lena's chest. Before she could respond, Kelly appeared in the doorway, her expression tight. We have a problem. Adrian was moving before Kelly finished speaking. What kind? Patricia just arrived, with a reporter from the Tribune and what looks like a lawyer. Lena's blood went cold. She wasn't invited. No, which means she's crashing for a reason. Kelly glanced at Lena. She's telling anyone who'll listen that the marriage is fraudulent, that you're not Victoria, that Adrian knew and married you anyway to access the Voss Trust Fund. That's insane. The trust fund was already mine. Doesn't matter. She's making it sound like fraud. The reporter is eating it up. Kelly pulled out her phone, showing them a photo. Patricia stood in the main gallery, surrounded by interested listeners, her expression righteous indignation. We need to handle this. Now. Adrian's face went hard, the pleasant mask he'd worn all evening evaporating. This was the man people feared, cold, calculating, capable of anything. Get Marcus, he told Kelly. Security Marcus. Have him escort Patricia out, quietly but firmly. If she resists, arrest her for trespassing. The reporter? Let him stay. He'll write what he sees, and I want him to see this. Adrian turned to Lena. Can you do something for me? What? Walk back in there with me, head high, completely unbothered. We're going to show everyone exactly who you are. Lena's stomach was a knot of panic, but she nodded. This was the moment Adrian had warned her about. The first real test. They walked back into the gallery together. Patricia spotted them immediately, her voice rising to carry across the room. There she is, the imposter. She's not my daughter, she's just a... Good evening, Patricia. Adrian's voice cut through her rant like a blade, commanding instant attention. The entire gallery went silent, hundreds of people turning to watch. I wasn't aware you'd been invited. I don't need an invitation to expose fraud. This marriage is a lie. She's not Victoria. She's nobody. A servant pretending to be... She's Lena Voss, Adrian interrupted. Daughter of James Voss, legitimate heir to the Voss estate and fortune, and my wife. There's nothing fraudulent about any of that. She substituted herself for Victoria. She tricked you. No. Adrian's smile was dangerous. You tried to substitute Victoria. I knew about the switch before it happened. I wanted Lena. I married Lena. Intentionally. The whispers erupted immediately. Lena stood frozen, feeling hundreds of eyes on her, judging and calculating and wondering. This was it. The moment everything either collapsed or solidified. Patricia's face went red. You're lying. You can't possibly have wanted her over Victoria. She's nothing. She's worth substantially more than your daughter could ever be. Adrian's voice dropped to something lethal. And unlike Victoria, she has the spine to stand here while you embarrass yourself in front of the city's elite. Tell me, Patricia, how many of these people do you owe money to? Patricia went white. Because I have the records, Adrian continued. The gambling debts, the unpaid invoices, the loans from people in this room that you've defaulted on. Shall we discuss those? Publicly? You bastard! Perhaps, but I'm a bastard who keeps my word and pays my debts. He gestured to security, who'd appeared at the edges of the gallery. Now you have a choice. Leave quietly or be removed. Either way, you're done here. Patricia looked around the room, searching for allies. But the faces that had been interested in her scandal moments ago now showed only disdain. She'd broken the cardinal rule of their world. Never air dirty laundry publicly. Never make a scene. This isn't over, she hissed at Lena. Yes, Lena said quietly, finding her voice. It is. Security escorted Patricia out, the reporter trailing behind to document her humiliation. The gallery erupted in conversation, but the tone had shifted. They weren't talking about fraud or deception anymore. They were talking about Adrian Cade's ruthless defense of his wife, about the girl who'd faced down Patricia Voss without flinching. Elena Volkov caught Lena's eye from across the room, raising her glass in a small salute. Respect, earned the hard way. Adrian's hand found Lena's, squeezing gently. Breathe, she breathed. Her whole body was shaking with adrenaline, but she was still standing, still here, still visible. How do you feel? Adrian asked quietly. Like I might pass out. Don't, we're not done yet. He guided her toward the center of the room, where a small orchestra had begun playing. Dance with me. Adrian, I can't. You can. You will. Everyone's watching, and we're going to show them exactly what they need to see. He pulled her into a waltz position before she could protest. The music swelled, and they moved together across the polished floor. Lena's feet remembered Marcus's lessons, muscle memory taking over where thought failed. Around them, other couples joined the dance, but Lena barely noticed. She was focused on Adrian's eyes, on the steady pressure of his hand on her back, on the fact that she was dancing in public, in front of hundreds of people, and not disappearing. You're full of surprises, Adrian murmured. So are you. You really knew. Before the wedding? I told you. I've been watching you for 18 months. That's creepy. That's thorough. His smile was slight. You held your own tonight. Against Elena, against Patricia. You proved you belong here. I don't feel like I belong. No one does. That's why we all perform so hard. The song shifted to something slower. But you're not performing anymore. You're just being. That's more powerful than any act. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. More introductions, more conversations, more tests disguised as small talk. But something had shifted. People looked at Lena differently now, not with pity or curiosity, but with consideration, with respect. By the time they left, well past midnight, Lena's feet ached and her face hurt from smiling, but she'd survived. More than survived. She'd thrived. In the car, Kelly in the driver's seat and the city lights streaming past, Adrian turned to her. You exceeded every expectation I had. Don't sound so surprised. I'm not surprised. I'm impressed. There's a difference. He was quiet for a moment. Patricia will retaliate. Tonight humiliated her. She'll come back harder. Let her. Lena was surprised by the steel in her own voice. I'm not afraid of her anymore. Good. Because tomorrow we start the real work. What real work? Adrian's smile was sharp and satisfied. Destroying everything she built and rebuilding it with your name on the foundation. Lena looked out at the city, her city now, apparently, and felt something shift inside her. The scared girl who'd walked down that aisle 2 weeks ago was gone. In her place was someone new, someone harder. Someone who'd stared down Elena Volkov and Patricia and an entire ballroom full of predators and hadn't blinked. Someone who was just getting started. The night wasn't an ending, it was a beginning, and Lena Cade, not Voss but Cade, was ready for whatever came next, even if she had no idea what that was yet. The photographs hit the society pages by morning. Lena stared at herself in the Tribune's weekend edition, midnight blue dress, Adrian's hand on her waist, her expression calm and regal, while Patricia was being escorted out in the background. The headline read, Cade's Mystery Bride Silences Critics at Winterlight Gala. The article was surprisingly favorable. The reporter had witnessed Patricia's meltdown and Adrian's calculated defense, and he'd written it as a love story instead of a scandal. Star-crossed couple, family drama, the triumph of true connection over social expectation. It was fiction mostly, but useful fiction. You photograph well, Adrian said, reading over her shoulder. He was already dressed for the day despite it being barely 7 in the morning. Better than Victoria ever did. She always looked like she was calculating something. I was calculating something, how to not vomit from anxiety. It didn't show, that's what matters. He poured coffee, sliding a cup across to her. We need to talk about next steps. Can I have one morning to recover? No. Patricia's humiliation bought us leverage, but it won't last. She'll regroup, find new allies, come at us from a different angle. He pulled out his tablet, showing her a series of documents. These are the Voss family business holdings, the ones Patricia's been slowly dismantling. I want you to take them back. Lena scanned the list. Her grandfather's shipping company, now reduced to 2 vessels. The real estate portfolio, half sold off. Investment accounts, drained to nothing. It was 8 years of systematic theft laid out in cold numbers. How am I supposed to take them back? Legally, for the most part. The trust transfer gives you standing to file suit for mismanagement. My lawyers are already drafting the paperwork. Adrian zoomed in on one document. But there's a faster way for some of them. Your father's shipping company, for instance. Patricia sold controlling interest to a man named Thomas Wright 3 years ago. Wright's been running it into the ground ever since. Why would he do that? Because Patricia's paying him to. The company fails, she buys it back at pennies on the dollar, flips it to someone else. She's done it with 4 businesses already. Classic asset stripping. The casual cruelty of it made Lena's chest tight. Her father had built that company over 20 years. Patricia had destroyed it in 3. What's the faster way? Adrian's smile was sharp. Wright has debts, significant ones. To people who listen to me when I ask them to call those debts in. We apply pressure, he gets desperate, we offer to buy back the company at a fair price. Everyone wins except Patricia. That's extortion. That's business. In my world, they're the same thing. He closed the tablet. But it's your choice. We can do this through courts, which will take years and cost a fortune. Or we can do it my way, which takes weeks and costs Wright's cooperation. Lena thought about her father, about the way he'd described his company like it was a living thing. The ships had names. The crews were people he knew. It had mattered to him in ways Patricia would never understand. Do it your way, she said. But I want to be there when you talk to Wright. I want him to know who he's dealing with. Done. I'll set up a meeting for Tuesday. Adrian studied her face. You're getting comfortable with this. With what? Using power. Most people take months to stop flinching. You've stopped already. Maybe I'm just good at pretending. Maybe. Or maybe you're finally becoming who you were supposed to be before Patricia spent 8 years trying to erase you. The words hit deeper than Lena expected. She changed the subject. What about the other holdings? We'll handle them one by one. Real estate, investments, the family foundation. By the time we're done, you'll control everything your father built." He paused. "And then you'll need to decide what to do with it." "What do you mean?" "I mean, Lena, that you're about to be independently wealthy and powerful. You won't need my protection anymore. You won't need me at all." His expression was carefully neutral. "Our 6-month agreement still stands. When the time comes, you can walk away if you want." Something twisted in Lena's stomach. The thought of leaving, of going back to being alone, even with money, felt wrong in a way she couldn't articulate. "That's 4 months away," she said. "A lot can happen in 4 months." "It can." Adrian stood collecting his things. "Marcus wants to brief you at 10. Security update. And Kelly's scheduled you for weapons training this afternoon." "Weapons training?" "You're married to me, Lena. Eventually someone will try to use that against us. You need to know how to protect yourself." He left before she could argue. Lena sat in the enormous kitchen, surrounded by luxury she still didn't quite believe was real, and wondered when her life had become something that required weapons training. Marcus, the security Marcus, she really needed to stop thinking of him that way, arrived at 10 sharp with Kelly in tow. They spread surveillance photos across the dining table like they were planning a military operation. "Patricia met with someone yesterday," Marcus said without preamble, "after the gala. This man." He tapped a photo of a heavyset guy in an expensive suit, silver hair, cold eyes. "Name's Victor Reeves. He's a lawyer, but not the courtroom kind." "What kind then?" Lena asked. "The kind who makes problems disappear. People, evidence, inconvenient truths. He's very good at what he does and very expensive." Marcus pulled up another photo. They met for 2 hours at the Gramercy. "Our contact couldn't get audio, but body language suggests Patricia hired him for something significant." "Like what?" Kelly answered. "Like finding leverage against you, or Adrian, or both. Reeves specializes in digging up dirt that shouldn't exist. He's found things on people that even they didn't know about." Lena's skin prickled. "I don't have secrets. I was barely allowed a life. Everyone has secrets. And if they don't, Reeves will create some." Marcus closed his tablet. "Which means we need to be proactive. Kelly's going to increase your security detail. 2 guards minimum, always. 1 close, 1 at distance." "I don't want to live in a cage." "You're not. You're living in reality." Kelly's tone was firm, but not unkind. "Someone tried to kill Adrian 6 months ago. Car bomb, professionally done. He survived because he had good security and better instincts. You have neither yet." The words landed like a slap. "No one told me that." "I'm telling you now." Adrian spoke from the doorway, and Lena wondered how long he'd been listening. "The bomb was meant for me, but it killed my driver instead. Daniel. Good man, wife, and 2 kids. I pay for their schooling now, but it doesn't bring him back." Lena stared at him. "You should have told me." "Would it have changed your decision?" She wanted to say yes, but honestly, she didn't know. "I deserve to know the risks." "You're right. I'm telling you now. This life is dangerous. People will try to hurt me. The security isn't paranoia, it's necessity." He moved to the table, studying the photos. "Reeves is a problem. We need to neutralize him before he finds anything useful." "How?" Marcus asked. "The usual way. Find his pressure points and press." Adrian looked at Lena. "Are you still willing to meet right on Tuesday?" "Yes." "Good, because we're also going to use that meeting to send a message. Patricia needs to understand that coming after us has consequences." The weapons training that afternoon was surreal. Kelly took her to a private range in the basement of a building Adrian owned, because apparently he owned buildings, plural, all over the city. The range was professional grade, soundproofed, with targets at varying distances. "Ever fired a gun?" Kelly asked, setting up equipment. "No." "Then we start with basics. Stance, grip, breathing, trigger control. You won't be an expert today, but you'll be less helpless." She pulled out a handgun, checking it with practiced efficiency. "This is a Glock 19, 9mm, standard capacity. It's what I carry, and it's what you'll learn on." The gun was heavier than Lena expected, cold and serious in her hands. Kelly positioned her body, adjusted her grip, talked her through the mechanics. "Eyes on the target. Breathe steady. Squeeze. Don't pull." The first shot nearly made Lena drop the gun. The recoil, the noise, even through ear protection, the sudden violence of it. The bullet hit the target somewhere near the edge, barely on paper. Again, Kelly said. They practiced for an hour. By the end, Lena's arms ached and her ears rang despite the protection, but her grouping had improved. She wasn't good, but she was less terrible. You'll practice twice a week, Kelly said, packing up. Eventually it'll feel natural, muscle memory. Will I actually need to use this? Kelly's expression was serious. I hope not, but hope isn't a strategy. Being prepared is. Tuesday arrived faster than Lena wanted. She dressed carefully, business attire, expensive but not flashy, projecting competence without aggression. Adrian had coached her through the meeting strategy over breakfast. Wright's drowning in debt, he'd explained. Gambling, mostly. He owes $200,000 to people who aren't patient about repayment. We're going to offer him a way out. By buying back my father's company. Exactly. He saves face, keeps his kneecaps, and we get what we want. Everyone walks away happy. Except Patricia. Adrian's smile was cold. Except Patricia. They met right at a restaurant downtown. Neutral territory, public enough to feel safe, private enough for honest conversation. Wright was already there when they arrived, his expensive suit not quite hiding the sweat stains. He looked like a man who wasn't sleeping well. Mr. Cade. Mrs. Cade. His handshake was clammy. Thank you for meeting with me. Of course. Adrian settled into his seat with easy confidence. Lena sat beside him, channeling every lesson in posture and presence she'd learned. I understand you're having financial difficulties. Wright's face went red. I don't know what you've heard, but I've heard you owe money to Sal Marchetti. $200,000 plus interest that's compounding daily. Sal's not known for his patience. That's a private matter. Nothing's private when you owe Sal money. He makes sure of that. Adrian signaled the waiter, ordering drinks like they were discussing weather. Here's what I'm proposing. You sell me controlling interest in Voss shipping. Fair market value, payment immediate. That gives you enough to clear your debt and start over. The company's not worth that much. It is to me and to my wife. Adrian glanced at Lena. Her father built that company. She wants it back. Wright looked at Lena properly for the first time, something like guilt crossing his features. I didn't know. Patricia said you didn't care about the business. Patricia lied about a lot of things, Lena said quietly. The company meant everything to my father. It means something to me too. I've been running it honestly. Whatever Patricia's agenda was, I've tried to keep it afloat. Adrian pulled out documents, sliding them across the table. I know. I've seen the books. You've actually done decent work under difficult circumstances, which is why this offer is generous instead of hostile. Wright read through the papers, his hands shaking slightly. The numbers were there in black and white, enough to clear his debts and then some. If I don't accept? Then Sal calls in your debt tomorrow morning, and the people after Sal will be less pleasant. Adrian's voice stayed pleasant, conversational. But that won't happen, because you're a smart man, and smart men know when to take the exit being offered. The silence stretched. Lena watched Wright's face cycle through options, seeing him arrive at the same conclusion Adrian had known he would reach. I'll need to review this with my lawyer. Of course. You have until Friday. After that, the offer expires and you're on your own with Sal. Adrian stood, buttoning his jacket. One more thing. Patricia paid you to run the company into the ground. I know this. You know this. That stops now. If you take this deal, you walk away clean. If you try to interfere with the transition or help Patricia in any way, the deal's off and your debts become public knowledge. Wright nodded slowly, looking defeated and relieved in equal measure. Outside in the car, Lena turned to Adrian. You really would have let Sal hurt him? No. Sal would have hurt him all on his own. I just gave Wright the information to make an informed choice. That's splitting hairs. That's how power works. Providing options that lead to the outcome you want while letting people think they chose freely. He glanced at her. You're judging me. I'm trying to understand you. Good luck with that. I've been trying for 32 years. Despite herself, Lena smiled. Adrian had a way of disarming tension with unexpected honesty. It was one of the things that made him dangerous. You could almost forget what he was capable of when he smiled like that. That evening, Kelly pulled Lena aside as she was heading to the library. We have a problem. Well, an opportunity that looks like a problem. That's specific. Elena Volkov contacted me. She wants to meet with you, alone. Coffee, public place, just the two of you. Lena's stomach tightened. Why? She didn't say, but Elena doesn't do social calls. She wants something. Kelly's expression was carefully neutral. It's your choice. But if you go, I'll have people nearby. She'll know they're there. That's the point. Shows you're protected, but not scared. Does Adrian know? Not yet. I wanted to ask you first. The fact that Kelly had come to her directly instead of going through Adrian felt significant, like she was being treated as her own person instead of Adrian's appendage. Set it up, Lena said. Tomorrow, if possible. Kelly's smile was approving. I'll make it happen. The next morning, Lena found herself in a cafe in the arts district, waiting for Elena Volkov and trying not to look as nervous as she felt. Kelly was somewhere nearby, invisible but present. Two other security personnel were positioned strategically around the block. Elena arrived exactly on time, dressed down in jeans and a leather jacket that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. She ordered a latte with oat milk and sat across from Lena with the ease of someone who'd never doubted her welcome anywhere. Thank you for meeting me, Elena said. I wasn't sure you would. I'm curious why you wanted to. Straight to business. I like that. Elena added sugar to her coffee, stirring slowly. I wanted to apologize for the gala. I was testing you, and I was harsher than necessary. You were honest. I appreciate honesty. Most people don't. Most people want comfortable lies. Elena's smile was slight. You're not like most people Adrian associates with. You're interesting. I'm his wife, not his associate. Are you? Or are you a strategic asset he's still figuring out how to deploy? Elena leaned forward slightly. I'm not trying to insult you. I'm genuinely curious. What's your role in his empire? I'm still figuring that out. Fair enough. Here's why I asked to meet. Elena's expression turned serious. My father's planning something that involves Adrian and by extension, you. I don't know details yet, but I know the pattern. He's circling, looking for weaknesses. Why are you telling me this? Because unlike my father, I don't believe in unnecessary destruction. Adrian and I could be competitors without being enemies. We could even be allies if the circumstances were right. She paused. And because I think you might be the key to preventing a war no one wants. Lena processed this carefully. You want me to be a bridge between your father and Adrian. I want you to be a reality check for both of them. They're so busy measuring each other that they're missing the actual threats. There are other players in this city, bigger, meaner, with fewer scruples than either of them. Like who? Elena's smile was grim. Like the people who tried to kill Adrian 6 months ago. The car bomb? That wasn't random violence. That was a message from someone who wants his territory and doesn't care about the old rules. The cafe suddenly felt too exposed. Lena glanced around, spotting Kelly by the window, her posture alert. Does Adrian know you know about this? Probably. He's not stupid, but his pride makes him think he can handle everything alone. You're his weakness and his strength. If someone wants to hurt him, they'll come through you. But if you're smart, and I think you are, you can also protect him in ways his security never could. How? By seeing what he doesn't, by connecting dots he's too close to connect. Elena finished her coffee. I'm not asking you to spy for me or betray Adrian. I'm asking you to keep your eyes open, watch the patterns, and when something doesn't add up, trust your instincts. Why should I trust you? You shouldn't. I'm Ivan Volkov's daughter. I'm ambitious and dangerous and probably working an angle you can't see yet. Elena stood, dropping cash on the table. But I'm also pragmatic. Chaos is bad for business. War is expensive. If we can avoid both by being honest with each other, everyone wins. She left without waiting for a response. Lena sat there, her coffee going cold, trying to figure out what had just happened. Kelly appeared at her elbow. You okay? I don't know. Was that a threat or an offer? With Elena? Probably both. That night, Lena told Adrian about the meeting. He listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable. She's right about one thing, he said finally. There are bigger threats than the Volkovs. I've been tracking unusual activity in the shipping corridors. Money moving through channels that shouldn't exist. Someone's building something. Do you know who? Not yet, but I will. He was quiet for a moment. Elena's playing her own game, offering you information, building trust, creating a line of communication separate from her father. It's smart. Should I cut her off? No, keep talking to her. See what else she reveals. Just remember, she's never completely honest. No one in this world is. Including you? Adrian's smile was slight. Especially me. But at least I'm honest about being dishonest. Friday morning brought news from Wright. He'd signed the papers. Voss Shipping was back in Lena's control, the first piece of her father's legacy restored. Adrian had the documents delivered over breakfast, official and final. How does it feel? He asked. Like I'm responsible for something I don't know how to run. So learn, or hire people who do. He pulled out his phone, showing her a list of names. These are shipping executives I trust. Any of them would be thrilled to consult for Voss family rates. Lena scanned the list, feeling overwhelmed. A month ago, she'd been scrubbing floors. Now she owned a shipping company. This is insane. This is progress, and we're just getting started. Adrian's expression turned serious. Patricia's going to retaliate. Wright was her asset, and we just took him. She'll come at us harder. He was right. The retaliation came Sunday night in the form of a leak to 3 different newspapers. Tax documents suggesting Adrian had been evading payments for years, corporate records that looked damning out of context, photos of him meeting with known criminals. The articles hit Monday morning, coordinated and vicious. Cade Empire built on fraud, read one headline. Crime boss hides behind legitimate businesses, read another. Lena found Adrian in his office, surrounded by lawyers and crisis management people, his expression carved from ice. How bad is it? She asked. Manageable. The documents are real but incomplete. Taken alone, they look incriminating. In context, they're standard business practice. He dismissed the room with a gesture, leaving them alone. Patricia's using Reeves well. These leaks are timed to cause maximum damage. What do? We hit back harder. His smile was sharp and dangerous. How would you feel about a press conference? A what? You, me, cameras. We tell our story before Patricia can twist it further. The substitute bride who took back her inheritance. The marriage that started as strategy and became real. The family drama everyone's been gossiping about. You want to weaponize our relationship. I want to control the narrative. Right now, Patricia's telling the story. We need to tell ours. He studied her face. But only if you're comfortable. This will make you very public. No more invisibility. Lena thought about the girl she'd been 3 weeks ago. Invisible, scared, erased. That girl would have refused, would have hidden, would have let Patricia win. But that girl was gone. When's the press conference? Adrian's smile was proud and fierce. Tomorrow, 2 o'clock. Every major outlet in the city will be there. Then I guess I should figure out what to wear. Wear armor disguised as fashion. You're about to declare war. The press conference was scheduled for the Grand Ballroom at the Ashford Hotel, the same venue where Adrian had announced a real estate deal 6 months prior. Lena stood backstage, her reflection in the mirror showing someone she still didn't quite recognize. The stylist had chosen ivory, a deliberate contrast to the midnight blue of the gala. Soft, but not weak. Elegant, but not frivolous. You look like you're about to face a firing squad, Marcus the stylist said, adjusting her collar. I feel like it. Good. Channel that energy. Let them see you're taking this seriously. He stepped back, assessing. Remember, you're not defending yourself. You're telling your story. There's a difference. Adrian appeared in the doorway, already dressed in a dark suit that made him look like he'd stepped out of a boardroom war. Ready? No, but I'm doing it anyway. That's the spirit. He offered his arm. Stay close to me. If a question makes you uncomfortable, I'll handle it. But try to answer what you can. The more authentic you are, the better. They walked to the wings together. Through the curtain, Lena could see the ballroom packed with reporters, cameras, the hungry machinery of media waiting to be fed. Her stomach twisted into knots. What if I mess this up? You won't. And if you do, we'll fix it. Adrian's hand found hers, squeezing gently. You survived 8 years with Patricia. You can survive 20 minutes with reporters. The introduction was brief. Adrian's publicist, a sharp woman named Caroline who'd flown in from New York that morning, welcomed everyone and established ground rules. Then she called them out. The lights were blinding. Lena's legs moved on autopilot, carrying her to the podium beside Adrian. He spoke first, his voice carrying the easy authority she'd come to recognize. Thank you all for coming. I know there have been questions about my marriage, about my wife's background, about the legitimacy of our relationship. So we're here to answer those questions directly. He laid out the facts with clinical precision. Victoria's disappearance, the substitution, his prior knowledge, the strategic reasons behind accepting the switch. He made it sound logical, inevitable, like a business decision that happened to involve hearts. Then he turned to Lena. But strategy isn't the whole story. My wife has something to say about that. The room went silent. Lena stepped to the microphone, her prepared notes suddenly useless. She'd spent hours memorizing talking points, but standing here under the lights, they felt hollow. So she spoke from somewhere rawer instead. My name is Lena Voss-Cade. I'm 21 years old. When I was 12, my father died, and my stepmother decided I was more useful as a servant than a daughter. Her voice shook slightly, but she pushed through. For 8 years, I lived in my own home like a ghost. I cleaned, I cooked, I stayed invisible. My stepmother stole my inheritance and made me believe I deserved nothing. Someone's camera clicked. The sound felt obscenely loud. 3 weeks ago, my stepsister ran away from her wedding. My stepmother forced me to take her place because the alternative was worse. I walked down that aisle thinking I was being sacrificed. Lena's eyes found Adrian. But my husband knew who I was. He'd known for months. And instead of rejecting me, he offered me a choice. Freedom or partnership? I chose partnership. Why? Someone called out. Because I was tired of being invisible. Because he saw something in me that I'd forgotten existed. Because for the first time in 8 years, someone treated me like I mattered. She paused. Is it strategic? Yes. Adrian gained social connections through my family name. I gained protection and resources to reclaim what was stolen from me. But it's also real. We're building something together. That's more than most marriages can claim. The questions came fast after that. Lena fielded what she could, Adrian smoothly intercepting the rest. They worked together, a practiced rhythm developing even though they'd never rehearsed this. When someone asked about the tax documents Patricia had leaked, Adrian demolished the accusations with receipts and context. When someone asked if Lena was afraid of Adrian's reputation, she looked directly at the camera. I've lived with real cruelty. I know what it looks like. This isn't it. The press conference lasted 37 minutes. By the time they walked off stage, Lena's hands were shaking and her throat was dry, but the expressions on the reporters' faces had shifted from skeptical to fascinated. You did well, Caroline said backstage, already on her phone checking social media reactions. Really well. The authenticity is playing perfectly. People love a comeback story. This isn't a story, Lena said quietly. This is my life. In this city, everything's a story. The key is controlling which one gets told. Caroline showed them her phone. Twitter's already trending. Half the city's calling you Cinderella. The other half's calling Patricia a monster. Both work for us. Adrian guided Lena away from the chaos, finding a quiet room down the hall. She collapsed into a chair, adrenaline crashing. I just told the entire city my stepmother treated me like a slave. You told them the truth. That takes courage. He poured water from a pitcher, handing her a glass. Patricia will retaliate. This humiliated her publicly. She'll come back harder. Let her. Lena drank, the water helping her raw throat. I'm done being afraid of her. The retaliation came faster than expected. That night, as Lena was trying to decompress with a book she couldn't focus on, Marcus burst into the penthouse with Kelly close behind. We have a situation, Marcus said, his expression grim. Patricia filed for emergency custody of Victoria, claiming Adrian's a dangerous influence, and you're an unfit guardian for family matters. It's nonsense legally, but she's gotten it in front of Judge Morrison. Morrison's in her pocket, Adrian said, appearing from his office. She donates to his campaigns. This is theater, not a real legal threat. Theater that puts you in court tomorrow morning, Kelly added. And she's bringing Reeves. He's prepared something. Adrian's jaw tightened. What kind of something? Unknown, but he requested permission to introduce evidence about your business practices. Morrison approved it. Lena watched Adrian's expression cycle through calculations. This was different from their carefully controlled press conference. This was Patricia choosing the battlefield. We'll deal with it, Adrian said finally. Get our legal team on standby. I want every document about my businesses ready to counter whatever Reeves produces. There's something else. Marcus pulled out his tablet, showing surveillance footage. Patricia met with someone tonight. We couldn't get a clean ID, but the body language suggests a new alliance. The footage showed Patricia in a parking garage, speaking with a man whose face was mostly hidden by shadows. But there was something familiar about his posture, the way he moved. Freeze it, Adrian said sharply. There, zoom in. Marcus did. The image was grainy, but sufficient. The man had a distinctive scar along his jaw, visible even in poor lighting. Adrian went very still. That's Anton Volkov, Ivan's oldest son. The room temperature seemed to drop. Kelly swore quietly. Marcus looked like someone had slapped him. Why would Patricia be meeting with a Volkov? Lena asked. Because she's desperate and stupid, Adrian said, his voice cold. The Volkovs don't do favors without prices. If Anton's involved, Ivan authorized it, which means Patricia just made this much bigger than a family dispute. Could it be about the custody hearing? No, that's small stakes. If Ivan's moving pieces, he wants something substantial. Adrian studied the footage again. Marcus, I need eyes on every Volkov property. Movement patterns, communications, everything. Kelly, double Lena's security. If the Volkovs are in play, the rules just changed. What do the Volkovs want? Lena asked. The same thing everyone wants. Power, territory, control. Adrian turned to her. Your family's shipping company gives us access to import channels the Volkovs have been trying to crack for years. If Patricia promised them access in exchange for helping destroy me, Ivan would take that deal. But I control the company now. Patricia can't promise them anything. Unless she plans to take control back, through you. Adrian's expression was grim. If something happened to me, you'd inherit my assets. If Patricia then had leverage over you, legal custody of Victoria, for instance, or evidence of criminal activity, she could force you to cooperate. You'd give her the shipping company to protect yourself, and she'd hand it to the Volkovs. The complexity of it made Lena's head spin. That's insane. That's chess at this level. Everyone's playing 3 moves ahead. He pulled out his phone. I'm calling Ivan. We're going to settle this directly. Is that safe? Nothing about this is safe, but letting him think he has the upper hand is worse. The call was brief and tense. Adrian spoke in clipped sentences, his tone carrying threat wrapped in politeness. When he hung up, his expression was unreadable. He wants a meeting, tonight, just the 2 of us, neutral ground. He means you and him, Lena said. He means you and me. Adrian's slight smile didn't reach his eyes. He specifically asked that you attend. That's how I know this is about the shipping company. Then I'm coming. Lena, if this is about my company, I should be there. You said I need to learn this world. Let me learn. Adrian studied her face for a long moment. All right, but you follow my lead. If I say we leave immediately. Understood? Understood. The meeting was set for midnight at a restaurant that had been closed for renovations, neutral ground that belonged to neither Adrian nor Ivan. They arrived with full security, Kelly and 3 others forming a protective perimeter. The Volkovs matched their numbers, professional and armed. Inside, Ivan waited at a table in the empty dining room, Lena beside him. The older man looked pleased with himself, a cat who'd cornered a mouse. Adrian, and the famous Lena, thank you for coming. Ivan gestured to chairs across from him. Please sit. Let's be civilized about this. Civilized, Adrian repeated flatly. Is that what you call meeting with my wife's stepmother behind my back? Business is business. Patricia offered an interesting proposal. I'd be foolish not to explore it. Ivan poured vodka into 4 glasses, sliding 2 across the table. She says you coerced Lena into this marriage, that you're using her for her family's assets, that given the choice, she'd prefer to be free. And you believed her? I believe everyone lies. The question is who's lying more effectively. Ivan's eyes fixed on Lena. So I'm asking you directly, Mrs. Cade. Are you here willingly, or is Adrian forcing your cooperation? Lena felt Elena's eyes on her too, assessing. This was a test, she realized, not just of her loyalty, but of her agency. If she seemed weak or controlled, Ivan would use that. If she seemed independent, he'd have to negotiate differently. I'm here willingly, she said clearly. Patricia spent 8 years forcing my cooperation. Adrian offered me a choice. That's the difference. A choice between what? His protection or your stepmother's cruelty? That's not much of a choice. It was enough of one. I chose him. I'd choose him again. She leaned forward slightly. But since we're being direct, let me ask you something, Mr. Volkov. Why are you helping Patricia? What did she promise you? Ivan's smile widened. I like her, Adrian. She has spine. He drank his vodka in one swallow. Patricia promised me access to Voss Shipping's import channels, specifically the routes through the eastern ports. Routes your organization currently uses exclusively. Routes you'll never have, Adrian said, because Lena controls that company, not Patricia. For now. But Patricia's lawyers are filing a competency challenge tomorrow. She'll claim Lena's too young, too inexperienced, too traumatized by years of abuse to make sound business decisions. She'll request court oversight of the company until Lena reaches 25. And guess who she's suggesting as the court-appointed trustee? Herself, Lena said, her stomach sinking. Herself, Ivan confirmed. Morrison will approve it. He owes Patricia favors. Once she controls the company again, our deal proceeds as planned. Elena spoke for the first time. This is why I told you to watch the patterns. My father's been planning this for weeks. You knew? Adrian's voice carried an edge. I suspected. I warned Lena to be careful. Elena looked at her father. But this is a mistake. The kind that starts wars neither of us can afford. It's only a war if Adrian makes it one, Ivan said calmly. I'm offering a peaceful solution. Share the shipping routes. Give us access to 3 of the eastern ports. In exchange, I withdraw support from Patricia and her legal challenges disappear. You want me to give you my wife's company. I want you to be reasonable, to recognize when you're outmaneuvered. Ivan's expression hardened. Patricia has evidence that will destroy your reputation. Morrison will rule in her favor. You'll lose the company anyway. My way, you lose less. Lena felt Adrian tense beside her, coiled fury barely contained. This was the moment where violence could erupt, where carefully maintained peace could shatter. But Adrian had taught her something in the past 3 weeks. Power wasn't just force. It was knowing when to push and when to pivot. No, Lena said, her voice cutting through the tension. Both Ivan and Adrian looked at her, surprised. No? Ivan repeated. You're assuming you've already won, that Morrison will rule for Patricia, that the evidence will stick, that I'll be declared incompetent. But you're forgetting something. Lena met his eyes steadily. I'm not the scared girl Patricia trained me to be. I'm Adrian Cade's wife, and I have resources now. Resources won't help if the court rules against you. Then we'll appeal, and during that appeal, I'll take every piece of evidence of Patricia's embezzlement, and trust me, we have it all, and I'll make it public. Her fraud, her theft, her abuse. I'll make sure every newspaper in the city knows exactly what she did. She'll face criminal charges, prison time. She's willing to risk that. Maybe. But are you willing to be associated with it? Lena leaned forward. Right now you're a legitimate businessman. Gambling, sure, but mostly legal. If you're publicly allied with Patricia when her crimes come out, that legitimacy evaporates. Your business relationships suffer. Your political connections distance themselves. You lose more than you'd gain from 3 shipping routes. Ivan's expression shifted, calculation replacing confidence. Elena's smile was slight but approving. You're bluffing, Ivan said. Try me. Lena's voice stayed level. We can all lose, Mr. Volkov, or we can all walk away and pretend this conversation never happened. Your choice. The silence stretched. Adrian's hand found Lena's under the table, squeezing gently. Support without interference. Finally, Ivan laughed. Real laughter, surprised and genuine. You chose well, Adrian. She's got teeth. I told you. Fine. I withdraw support from Patricia. Her legal challenges are her problem. Ivan stood, buttoning his jacket. But this isn't over. Eventually, I'll still want access to those ports. Next time, I'll negotiate with your wife directly instead of trying to go around her. Next time, call first, Lena said. Even nodded, something like respect in his expression. Elena, come. We're done here. They left, their security following like shadows. When the door closed, Adrian turned to Lena. That was either brilliant or reckless. I still haven't decided which. You said to watch for patterns and trust my instincts. My instinct said Ivan cares more about his reputation than Patricia's revenge. You were right, but you just made a powerful enemy out of Patricia. Again. She was already my enemy, at least now she's alone. Kelly appeared in the doorway. We're clear, no complications. They drove back to the penthouse in silence. Lena's adrenaline was fading, leaving exhaustion in its wake. She'd just faced down Ivan Volkov, called his bluff, protected her father's company. A month ago, she couldn't have imagined any of it. The custody hearing tomorrow, Adrian said as they rode the elevator up. Patricia will still try. She's got nothing to lose now. Let her try. I'll testify. I'll tell the truth about what she did. That'll hurt you too, airing that trauma publicly. It already hurt me. Now I'm just making it count for something. The hearing the next morning was a disaster for Patricia from the first minute. Morrison, sensing which way the political winds were blowing after the press conference and Ivan's withdrawal, ruled against every motion Patricia's lawyers filed. When Reeves tried to introduce evidence of Adrian's business practices, Morrison called it irrelevant and prejudicial. Patricia's competency challenge died before it started. The judge ruled that Lena, as an adult and the legitimate heir, had every right to control her inheritance. Patricia's trusteeship was formally terminated. Watching Patricia's face collapse as she lost was satisfying in ways Lena hadn't expected. Not because she wanted revenge, though there was some of that, but because it meant closure. The woman who tormented her for 8 years had finally lost. In the hallway after, Patricia tried one last time. This isn't over. Yes, Lena said quietly. It is. You're done. The trust is mine. The company is mine. You have no power over me anymore. You think you're safe with him? You think Adrian Cade loves you? Patricia's laugh was bitter. You're a tool. A useful acquisition. When you stop being useful, he'll discard you. Maybe. Or maybe I'm exactly where I choose to be. Lena stepped closer, lowering her voice. You spent 8 years trying to break me. You failed. That must be hard to accept. She walked away before Patricia could respond, Adrian falling into step beside her. Kelly and Marcus flanked them, professional and alert. How does it feel? Adrian asked. Like I can finally breathe. Good. Because we have work to do. Your company needs a complete overhaul. The board needs replacing. Operations need restructuring. It'll take months. Then let's start. The next weeks were a blur of activity. Lena threw herself into learning the shipping business with the same intensity she'd brought to everything else. Adrian connected her with experts, sat in on meetings, taught her to read financial reports and spot weakness in negotiations. She made mistakes, plenty of them. She overpaid for a contract because she missed a clause. She trusted an executive who was embezzling. She made a routing decision that cost the company 2 weeks of delays. But she learned, fast, and with each mistake she got sharper. Elena reached out again, this time with a legitimate business proposal, a partnership between Volkov Enterprises and Voss Shipping for a specific route that benefited both. Lena negotiated hard, getting terms that heavily favored her company while giving Elena enough to make it worthwhile. You drive a hard bargain, Elena said when they finalized the deal. I learned from the best. Adrian? Patricia, actually. She taught me what cruelty looks like. Adrian taught me what power looks like. Together, they made me dangerous. Elena's smile was approving. We should do this again. As long as your father doesn't try to steal my company again. No promises. But I'll give you advance warning next time. The Voss estate sale happened in October. Lena had the property appraised, packed up her father's personal effects that Patricia hadn't sold, and put the rest on the market. It sold in 3 days to a tech entrepreneur who wanted the prestige of old architecture. Patricia tried to contest the sale, claiming she had rights to the property. The judge, a different one this time, laughed her out of court. With the proceeds, Lena established the James Voss Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to helping young people escape abusive family situations. Scholarships, legal aid, emergency housing, all the things she'd needed and never had. Adrian helped her set it up, connecting her with the right lawyers and advisors. "This is good," he said, reviewing the mission statement. "Meaningful. Your father would be proud." "I hope so. I barely remember him sometimes. Patricia did her best to erase him." "Then this keeps him alive. That matters." The 6-month mark of their marriage approached without fanfare. Lena realized it one morning while reviewing shipping schedules, noticing the date and feeling a jolt. She found Adrian in his office, working through contracts. "It's been 6 months." He looked up, understanding immediately. "It has. You said I could leave, that the agreement was for 6 months, and then I could walk away if I wanted." "I did say that." He set down his pen, his expression carefully neutral. "Are you planning to?" Lena thought about the girl who'd walked down that aisle in a veil, terrified and convinced she was being sacrificed. That girl seemed impossibly distant now, someone else entirely. "No," she said, "I'm not leaving." "Why not? You have money now, freedom. You don't need my protection." "I know, but I'm choosing to stay anyway." She moved into the office, settling into the chair across from him. "You asked me once what I wanted from this. I didn't have an answer then. I do now." "What do you want?" "Partnership. Real partnership. Not strategic marriage or convenient arrangement. I want to build something with you. The foundation, the company, whatever comes next. I want to be your actual wife." Adrian was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer than usual. "You know what I am, what I've done. The business isn't all legitimate. People have been hurt because of my decisions." "I know. And I'm not naive enough to think I can change that. But I also know you're more than your worst actions. You saw me when I was invisible. You gave me a choice when I had none. You've been honest even when it hurt." She paused. "I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm asking if you want me to stay." "Yes." The word came without hesitation. "I've wanted you to stay since the beginning, but it had to be your choice." "It is my choice. I'm choosing you. I'm choosing us. I'm choosing this complicated, dangerous, imperfect thing we've built." Adrian stood, moving around the desk. He pulled her up, his hands cupping her face with unexpected gentleness. "Then stay. Please stay." He kissed her. Really kissed her. Not the perfunctory press of lips from their wedding, but something real and hungry and vulnerable. Lena kissed him back, her hands fisting in his shirt, feeling like something fundamental had clicked into place. When they broke apart, Adrian's smile was genuine. "So what now?" "Now we figure out how to actually be married. The real kind, not the strategic kind." "That sounds complicated." "Everything about us is complicated. At least we're honest about it." The foundation's launch happened in November, a small ceremony that felt more meaningful than the Winterlight Gala. Lena cut the ribbon on their first emergency housing facility, a renovated building in the district where she'd grown up. 15 apartments for young people fleeing abuse, fully furnished and funded for a year while they got on their feet. Adrian attended, staying in the background but present. Kelly and Marcus too. Even Elena showed up, making a substantial donation and promising Volkov Enterprises support. "You've built something good here," Elena said, touring the facility. "That's rare in our world." "Someone had to." "Most people would take the money and disappear. Travel, shop, forget. You're using it for something that matters. I remember what it felt like to have nothing. I'm not going to forget just because I have something now." That night, back at the penthouse, Lena found Adrian on the balcony looking out at the city. She joined him, the November air sharp but not unpleasant. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For seeing me. For giving me a choice. For helping me become this." She gestured at herself, at everything. "I wouldn't be here without you. You would have found your way eventually. I just accelerated the timeline. Maybe, but I'm still grateful." Adrian pulled her close, his arm around her shoulders. They stood there watching the city lights, comfortable in silence. "Patricia called today," he said after a while. "From Paris. She's living with Victoria. They want to come back." "What did you tell her?" That if she sets foot in this city again, I'll have her arrested for fraud. The statute of limitations hasn't run out. He paused. Was that the right call? Lena thought about it. The old her would have said yes immediately, anything to keep Patricia away. But she wasn't the old her anymore. Yes. Not because I'm afraid of her, but because she doesn't get to come back and pretend nothing happened. She made her choices. Now she lives with them. And if Victoria wants to come back, she's still your stepsister. Then we'll deal with it, but on my terms, not hers. December brought snow and the kind of cold that made the city beautiful and miserable in equal measure. Lena spent the holidays with Adrian, learning what it meant to build traditions instead of enduring them. They hosted a small dinner, Marcus and Kelly, Elena, a few of Adrian's business associates who'd become something like friends. It was strange and lovely, nothing like the formal dinners Patricia used to throw. To new beginnings, Elena toasted, raising her glass. And to Lena, who proved that strong women don't need to be perfect. They just need to refuse to quit. I'll drink to that, Lena said. Later, alone with Adrian in the quiet penthouse, Lena reflected on everything that had changed. 6 months ago, she'd been invisible, erased, convinced she was nothing. Now she ran a company, led a foundation, negotiated with people who terrified others, married a man who'd seen her when no one else had. Regrets? Adrian asked, reading her expression. None. You? About you? Never. He pulled her closer, his smile soft. You're the best investment I ever made. That's very romantic. I'm not a romantic person. I know. That's why I married you. They laughed together, and it felt like coming home. Not to a place, but to a person. To herself. The snow fell outside, blanketing the city in white. Inside, warmth. Inside, partnership. Inside, the life Lena had chosen instead of the one that had been forced on her. She'd started as a replacement bride, a substitute, someone else's shadow. But she'd become herself, Lena Cade. Not invisible, not erased, not apologizing for existing, just present, just powerful, just exactly where she'd chosen to be. And that, she thought, was worth every terrifying step of the journey. The story that began with a veil and a lie had become something true, something earned, something worth keeping. Patricia had tried to erase her. The world had tried to break her. But Lena had survived both, and in surviving, she'd learned to thrive. This was her empire now, her life, her choice, and she was just getting started.